Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I am calling this meeting to order at 2:01 p.m. Before we get started, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these are territories that have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and that we are situated on occupied and stolen territories. And I know in this digital environment, a lot of us are calling in from different areas as well. So I really hope that we are taking the time to recognize and acknowledge the space that we're taking up on stolen, unceded Indigenous lands and centering that knowledge in the work that we do. So I will start off with the roll call of attendance. When I call out your position, if you could just share your name, your pronouns, and any access needs that you may have during this meeting. Access needs are going to be anything that we can do to make this meeting more accessible or more comfortable to you. If that's something you're not comfortable with sharing publicly, you're more than welcome to send me a private message. So I'll start off. My name is Asab. My pronouns are she, her. And as of right now, all of my access needs are met. And I will move on to VP External.
Hello, my name is Simon Fraser, VP External Relations, pronouns are he, him, his, and accessibility needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Samad. VP Finance.
Hey everyone, my name is Corbett. Pronouns are he, him, his, and access needs. I am at home with my laptop, so no camera, and it's noisy outside. So if you need me to speak up or repeat myself, please let me know.
Thank you, Corbett. VP Student Services.
Okay, that makes sense to go. It's Matt. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my accessibility needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. VP Student Life.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, she, her pronouns, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have VP University Relations.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabe Leosis. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Gabe. And yeah, I guess a quick edit we can make before the minutes are uploaded is I'll be chairing this meeting rather than Gabe. I wanted to chair the last one. Next, we have our at-large representative, Bilqis.
Hey, my name is Bilqis. I go by she, her, and hers, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Bilqis. We have our next at-large representative, Poom.
Hello, my name is Poom. Pronouns are he and his. Eating right now. Webcam will be on during the second half.
Sounds good. Thank you, Poom. Next, we have our faculty representative for Applied Sciences.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harry. Pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Harry. Next, we have our faculty representative for Arts and Social Sciences.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sude. Pronouns she, her, hers, and all of my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Sude. We have received our regrets today from our faculty representative for business and for our faculty representative for communications, art, and technology. So we will move on to our faculty representative for education.
I'm here. Awesome. I'm here.
Oh, you are here. I thought you sent your regret.
I did email that if I don't get a call, I'll be here.
Okay, sorry. Please go ahead.
Sorry about the confusion. I'm Heather. Pronouns are he, him, his, and access needs have been met. Just expecting another very important call in terms of access needs, so might be just gone for 30 minutes. Other than that, I'm fine.
Sounds good. It's good to see you. Now we will move on to our faculty representative for education.
Hello, my name is Emily. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Emily. Next, we have our faculty representative for environment.
Hey, everyone. My name is Anuki. Pronouns are she, hers, access needs are met.
Thank you, Anuki. Next, we have our faculty representative for health sciences.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Nafoni. And we also have our faculty representative for science.
Hey, everyone. My name is Wei Chen. My pronouns are he and his, and my access needs are currently met.
Thank you, Wei Chen. So now we will move on to society staff, starting with our operations organizer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Access needs, I am not feeling good, so my camera's off, and that's all from me.
Thank you, Aisha. Next, we have our administrative assistant. Well, I think we may have two. Brianna, did you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Brianna, she, her pronouns, and access needs are met. I know there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in this meeting. So just some slower, or not slower talking, but clear talking would be great. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brianna. We have our next administrative assistant, Somaya, joining us as well.
Hi everyone, this is Somaya. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Somaya. And thank you so much for all of our staff who are joining us today. I know that your names are not on the agenda, but I will go through the participants list, and if you're able to introduce yourself, that would be awesome. We will start off with Anna.
Hi, it's Anna. Pronouns she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Anna. Next, I have Ashley.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, we have Athena.
Hi folks, I'm Athena and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Athena. Next, I see Julia.
Hi everyone, this is Julia. My pronouns are she and her, and all my access needs have also been met.
Thank you, Julia. Next, we have Lacey. And Lacey, you're more than welcome to introduce yourself in the chat as well if you prefer. All right, we will move on to Melanie.
Hi everyone, it's Melanie. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Melanie. Next, we have Nancy.
Hi there, it's Nancy, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and all my access needs have been met. Thanks, also.
Thanks, Nancy. Next, we have Ricky.
Hi, my name is Ricky. Just quickly finishing off my lunch here, so I'll have my camera on in a bit. My pronouns are he, him, his, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. And then we have Shelly.
Hi, Shelly. Pronouns she, her, hers, and my access needs are met. Thank you.
Shelly. And I believe finally we have Sindhu.
Hi, it's Sindhu. Pronouns she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Sindhu. All right, and to all the guests who are joining us today, thank you so much for coming out and attending our board meeting. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. I hope everybody has had a chance to review the matters arising from the minutes. However, considering that there are a number of amendments on the table, I am going to suggest that we move the adoption of the agenda to a separate motion, removing it from the consent agenda and not approving that by unanimous consent. But the other items on the consent agenda will remain, including matters arising from the minutes from the board meeting on April 23rd, and then the various committee minutes from Accessibility Committee, BIPOC Committee, and FASC. I will seek unanimous consent for the approval of the consent agenda. If you would like to dissent or abstain, please unmute your mic now. All right, seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to the adoption of the agenda. So be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe.
Gabe moves. Would someone like to second?
Orbit.
Matt seconds. Perfect. All right. So I know that there are a number of amendments, so please list yourself in the chat. If you have an amendment, please make sure that you confirm that with me verbally now as well. I will start off as I do have a couple of amendments. The first one being that I would like to add a regret section before new business. And under that regrets, I would like to add the motion, be it resolved to ratify regrets from Mehtab Gill. The second piece is that I would like to amend the agenda to include a presentation right after the regrets before new business titled SFSS Board Year in Review. The third one is that I do have a motion that I would like to add to the agenda that reads the following. Whereas the Simon Fraser Student Society initially entered into a service sharing agreement with Fraser International College on January 2nd, 2019 for a term of 2 years. Whereas the agreement will see the SFSS continue to provide a broad range of services and support for students attending Fraser International College. Whereas the agreement has been extended as of January 2nd, 2021 for a term of 5 years. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors receive and file the attached services agreement with Fraser International College. And then the fourth amendment I have is a discussion item on the SF PERG Transformative Justice Summer School event. So that is from me. I will be copy pasting the motion in the chat. All right, Wei Chen.
Yeah, I have two amendments to make. One is a motion and one is a discussion. So the first one, motion is the self-activism project, which I'll be posting the motion in the chat. And then the second one is a discussion item on the TMX survey report.
Perfect. Thank you, Wei Chen. Next, we have Corbett.
Hi, I've got a number of items. I have two announcements. These two announcements are board and committee extra report reminder and board and committee work report reminder. I have a motion, which I'll paste in the chat after, but it reads, whereas the board of directors on July 10th, 2020 approved the sub space allocation proposal, whereas the board tasked President Asad Mohammed and VP Finance Corbett Gildersleeve to enter into agreements with FNSA, SOCA, DNA, CSF, Embark, and SFPERG on behalf of the board of directors, whereas these agreements have been completed and signed, be resolved that the board of directors receive and file to our corporate records the following letter of agreements and subleases. Sublease CJSF, sublease Embark, sublease SFPERG, letter of agreement First Nations Student Association, letter of agreement Students of Caribbean and African Ancestry. I also will have a once again, I also have a notice of motion. Whereas the 2020 referendum history report shows a different wording for the Space Expansion Fund compared to what is listed in our Financial Policies 12, whereas there were changes to the Space Expansion Fund's purpose in 2001 and 2010, whereas we have sought legal advice on the wording of the referendum to develop updated policy. We resolved that Council amend FP-12 Space Expansion Fund as presented. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will type it out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Gabe?
Thanks, Asad. I have a couple. I have 4 motions to add to new business. And I'm not going to read them all out, but I will. Well, unless you want me to, but I feel like we want to save time. So I'll just put them in the chat. The first one is to appoint a staff liaison officers for the 2021-2022 council term. That's in the chat there. The second one is to appoint a legal liaison officer for the 2021-2022 council term. The next one is to replace the president with the outgoing president with the incoming president to the bargaining committee. And the last one is to appoint signing officers for the 2021-2022 council term. And I also have I would like to add a section under after presentations called Report of Committees. And I would like to add reports from University and Academic Affairs, Governance Committee, Accessibility Committee, and Events Committee. And I believe that's it for me.
Thank you, Gabe. Jennifer?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to tidy up my notes for this meeting, but I would like to add a motion titled SFSS and SFU Esports Memorandum of Understanding, and I emailed this out earlier, and I will copy paste the entire motion in the chat.
Perfect. And Jen, is that it for you? Yes? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Balqis?
Hi, I have 2 amendments to add, or agenda items to add. I will paste them in the chat right now. One is an announcement titled SFSS Submission to the BC Police Act Review 2021, and the other is a motion titled Campaigns and Mobilization Coordinator. And I'll be pasting the motion right now in 2 parts in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Balqis. All right. So we have this big batch of amendments that I will move. Would somebody like to second this group of amendments?
Matt.
Matt seconds. Thank you, Matt. Is there any discussion on the amendments on the table? If not, we will be putting the amendments to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, the amendment is carried unanimously, and we'll go back to the main motion. Be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion on the agenda as a whole? All right, if not, we will also put that to a vote. So all those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. Balqis, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to dissent or abstain? All right, and that is also carried unanimously, and the agenda is approved as amended. All right, so we can now get started. On our presentation. So we are going to be going over the SFSS 4-year and review presentation. And I know somebody will be screen sharing, but I forget who. So
It'll be me.
Perfect. Thank you, Gabe. You should be able to screen share and you should be able to see that.
Perfect. Let me do that. And Asab, please just indicate to me when you want this slide to be changed.
Will do.
All right.
Wrong slide. Oh no, we're spoiling some of the good stuff. All right, cool. I think we're ready to go. So I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who has come to this meeting to join us and who has accepted our invitation to what I think is a very special meeting for our board, as this is the last one on the very last day of our term. And before we get started, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these are territories that have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and that we are situated on occupied and stolen territories. And I know I did provide a territorial acknowledgement at the beginning of this meeting, but I felt that it would be appropriate to share this again as we kind of go through the work that we've done this year, and to actually be cognizant of the lands that we're occupying and the work that we do on it as well. So Gabe, if you would like to go on to the next slide. All right, so this has been a very interesting year for the SFSS Board of Directors, and it is the first time that we have completed our term online the entire year. And this began due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which really kind of caught the SFU community off guard in March of 2020. And since then, we have filtered, into a services and operation model that is pretty much entirely online, and that has been scary, but also I think a challenge that we've had to overcome over the last year. And we are going to definitely be talking a little bit more about what that has meant. And this photo has a lot of significance to us, as it was at one of our board meetings. It was really nice to see everyone's faces and to have a photo of the team, which I'm hoping we'll be able to get another one of this evening. So Gabe, if you want to go to the next slide. So the contents of this particular presentation are going to go over some of the biggest items in our strategic plan, and also additional things that we think are important for our membership to know about what we've worked on this year. And all of this is encompassed under our mission, which is that the SFSS aims to advocate for students, build student power, and provide resources and services that represent, connect, and benefit our membership. We actually updated our mission this year because we really wanted it to reflect the direction that we wanted to see the SFSS go in one where we do continue to provide those resources, services, and have those community engagement pieces that do benefit our membership, but also recognizing that a function of a student union as well is to build student power and to recognize that as a collective, when we're able to band together and, you know, kind of build that collective solidarity as students, that we're able to, I think, have better outcomes when it comes to our academics, our finances, our health and well-being, and for the students to come. So we'll be going through this table of contents as we go. All right, so a big piece and one of my favorite pieces about being on the SFSS board is the academic advocacy that we do. And this is centered around student well-being and the university relations, which is a major tenet under our strategic plan. Some of the highlights from our academic advocacy from this year include the COVID-19 related advocacy, like having that student survey that went out that really gave us a lot of great data that helped us in our advocacy efforts over the year on both the university and government levels, and the coalition, C19 Coalition Town Hall, which was definitely a highlight. We were able to work with a number of community groups like the Graduate Student Society, the Teaching Support Staff Union, and Tuition Freeze Now to actually have a student-led conversation, student and worker-led conversation about the state of education and work at SFU. Gabe, our VP University Relations, and I attend the Joint Operations Group on a monthly basis. And that's kind of where we are able to sit down at the table with the key decision makers at the university, relate to them what we're hearing from students on a regular basis, and to make those demands for change that we see as appropriate. We have seen some major wins out of the Joint Operations Group, like an acknowledgement of the fact that education during the pandemic was not up to par and it wasn't what we wanted to see. And we've also gotten endorsements and support, such as with the elective grading scheme that was also passed at Senate. The compassionate grading scheme was a big success, and myself and the Graduate Student Society Director of External Relations regularly attend meetings with President Joy Johnson and VP Academic Catherine DeVerne. And that's where we really take the big items where we want to see immediate change from the kind of top of the SFU food chain. Some of the major pieces as well has included the students' technology support, which I was fortunate enough to work on with our Vice President Student Services, Matt, where we were able to give feedback and receive feedback from student groups. And that has resulted in some discounts for hardware, which has been important during the pandemic since a lot of students have had to transition to online learning. And the Student Affordability Working Group project has seen some real tangible results this year, including developing a food security resource page for SFU students, which is live on the SFU website, and a financial predictability calculator for students who are coming to SFU to get a feel for what their cost drivers will be during their time here. Not just tuition and not just rent, but thinking about things like transportation, entertainment, and life, etc. that in the end add up. And we want to make sure that students know what they're getting into and kind of have the background to make a financial decision that is sustainable for them. We also participated in the Scarborough National Charter on Anti-Black Racism and Black Inclusion in Canadian Higher Education. And this initiative was led by Provost, our at-large representative, focusing on governance, research, teaching, and learning and community engagement. And the much discussed gondola project, which will be voted on by Burnaby Council soon. They have heard us loud and clear. We mobilized hundreds of students to send emails to the Burnaby City Council and the mayor, and I was able to attend one of their meetings to speak directly to mayor and council on this item. So we're looking forward to seeing that go through. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the events we had and to give a major shout out to our events committee team, which was led by our VP Student Life, Jennifer, and the amazing students at large who really helped to actually build a community feel, I think, this year during the pandemic, particularly among students who hadn't actually had a chance to be on campus. And I know that there are a whole batch of students who will hopefully be able to attend our events in person one day, but we're able to get a feel for what SFU is like virtually as well. So overall, there were 28 collaborations with clubs, SFU Health and Counseling, and SFU Recreation, 19 giveaways, including the ones we did on Mental Health Mondays, and 56 total events, despite the fact that all of this was happening during a pandemic. And this is a screenshot of our stellar events team, and just a massive shout out to all of you for the amazing work that you've done. This is kind of another snapshot of the different events that were held and a quote from a student letting our events team know that they were excited to attend and that it was a great way to jump into the new year. We hosted talent nights, pets and yoga, Bob Ross paint night, and a cultural week in coalition with the First Nations Student Association. So a couple of these were fun workshops, but a lot of them actually had tangible skills that students could learn from as well, including the bullet journaling workshop, food-related workshops like the jollof rice and plantain food workshop, the food justice webinar, and the dance workshop. And some of the more fun things included murder mystery nights, paint nights, etc. And yeah, there were so many events that we were just not able to list in this presentation because that could be a separate presentation in and of its own. But it has definitely been a key facet of the SFSS this year. And I'm very grateful for that. Services. So another major part of our mission and our strategic plan is for the provision of services that benefit and represent and protect our membership. So this is looking into student well-being and student financial health. So a number of our board members were in close contact with student care, including our VP Student Services, Matt Provost, and our education rep, Emily Liu, who were able to kind of get some really cool outcomes in terms of extending benefits for students, not only related to COVID-19, but to psychoeducational assessments. So with the COVID-19 enhanced travel plan, students were able to get reimbursed for their trips, for cancellations and interruption, etc. And those cost drivers that were really surprising to students, particularly on the onset of the pandemic. And the psychoeducational assessment means that we can use our health reserve fund to actually have students get these psychoeducational assessments and have those paid for, and kind of try our best to eliminate that financial barrier when it comes to receiving a diagnosis or receiving help, which can help you in your educational life and otherwise. So a major shout out to our board members who worked on that. Health and Counseling has also been in close contact with us, including updating our student resource list and advocacy for BIPOC student wellness. And the Farm to Campus collaboration at SFU Surrey was a great initiative to provide a low barrier access to food to our students in Surrey. Another major one, which I know got a lot of great media coverage and helped a lot of students over the course of the summer term, or the fall semester rather, was the Burnaby Campus Food Hub, in which we partnered with the Burnaby Neighborhood House. And this initiative was led by Samad Reza, our VP External Relations, who worked tirelessly to be able to help us provide fresh food and groceries for students on campus during the pandemic. And the turnout was great, and the students, I believe, really benefited from this initiative. We also have taken on other pieces around services and supports, such as external resources supports. BIPOC committee has been working with Health and Counseling Services to look into ways that we can improve the services that are provided to BIPOC students in particular at SFU, looking into the services we provide and particularly updating them and providing a resource for students to look into if they are in need of support from us. And then also a wellness working group, which was established to support student wellness within the SFSS. And we've also been thinking about a COVID-19 vaccine campaign, which has actually been going on in our social media recently, letting students know kind of the most up-to-date details around the vaccine rollout. So I think that those are some really tangible pieces that students can gather information from. Another big piece that we've been working on is around bursaries and financial aid, as one of, again, the major tenets of our strategic plan include financial health and university relations. And something that is, I think, no stranger to university students and working class folks pretty much all over the world is that the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a massive financial strain on us. And, students have been in situations where things like co-ops have been lost, job opportunities have been lost, and, we are having to kind of turn to these areas where COVID transmission may be higher, such as service jobs, etc., and essential work jobs. So we really intimately understand the financial burden that's been on students and wanted to provide tangible support. So what we've been working on this year, and with within the COVID-19 pandemic is that we have allocated and distributed some of the funding that we've put aside for COVID-19 emergency aid to the tune of $610,000. So we have allocated $400,000 to be distributed in summer 2021, and we have already distributed $150,000 in the summer 2020 term to SFU undergraduates, and then $60,000 to Fraser International College students in the same time period. We also contributed $10,000 to our annual SFU undergraduate award. We contributed $11,645 to the Living Personal Truth Award, which is specifically to support LGBTQ students in their endeavors and really recognizing the personal truth and the personal courage that it takes to live your life as an LGBT student, and in recognition that these students deserve to be able to have an accessible and affordable education. We also really recently, and I'm super happy to announce that we're partnering with World University Services Canada to provide a scholarship to one Black and one refugee student who, and it will cover their tuition and other costs for their time at SFU. And this is another piece where we see students who, deserve support and deserve to be able to come to SFU. We believe that education is a right and that it should be affordable for everyone. And until we have a free education, we'll continue to support students financially to the best of our abilities. Another major tenet of the SFSS advocacy this year has included equity and social justice related campaigns, and this ties directly into student well-being in a number of ways. So this slide is talking a little bit more about the internal SFU related advocacy that we did with regard to equity and social justice. A major one was one that we were actually connected to through community members like athletes, Black students and allies regarding the SFU athletics name, which was originally the Klan, and recognizing the very harmful anti-Black and very racial connotations behind that name. This campaign was launched by student athletes and was hugely successful, and I feel very honored that we were able to work alongside them on that. We also supported the Let Us Speak campaign led by the FNSA after numerous missteps by SFU with regard to properly consulting and working with Indigenous students and community members. And we've been pushing and will continue to push for real student facing support with the Vice President People, Equity and Inclusion role. We also have been pushing for student space on campus for department student unions, faculty student unions and constituency groups. And we've been working on pushing SFU to make real commitments towards student safety with regards to the Trans Mountain expansion and the campus safety and decreased police presence on campus in the future. We've also internally added a new Vice President Equity and Sustainability role, and I believe Marie, the first person to take on that position, is here joining us and has also been a major player in the SFU team name change campaign, so a shout out to her. We've established seats for equity seeking groups on council and passed a number of issues policies at our most recent meeting that would actually help to provide some information on the board's direction on political, social, and economic interests of students at SFU. And with regards to some of the external work that we've been doing, a lot of this has been led by our External and Community Affairs Committee, which is chaired by Samad, our VP External. On the local level, it has been a lot about the Burnaby Mountain Gondola and connecting with Burnaby Mayor and Council. On the provincial level, we've been advocating for things like race-based data collection, recently submitted to the Police Act review for 2021. And the big and very exciting thing is that the new Minister of Advanced Skills and Training, Ann Kang, has committed to doing a review on post-secondary funding. I think that this piece could probably be a presentation in and of itself, but there is a commitment from the provincial government to involve students in that, and I believe that that's a major win. We've also worked with the Don't Forget Students Coalition on making sure that the COVID-19 emergency student benefit was implemented so that students would be able to receive financial support during the pandemic. We also had some big wins like the postgraduate work permit that was led by Migrant Students United and will continue to resist the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. Another major piece that we'd like to talk about is solidarity and coalition building. This is within the university and with other groups as well, and this is in recognition of the fact that as the SFSS, we are here to, I think, continue to support and uplift a lot of the grassroots organizers who have the knowledge and the know-how and the mobilizing skills to really help us get better outcomes for our students. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming slides. So in particular, we were able to support a number of grassroots groups and organizations with campaigns that they had been running, including contract workers at SFU, the Braided Warriors, the Research Assistants Unionization, farmers protests happening in India, and more. And some of the coalitions we've been able to build and be a part of are the COVID-19 Coalition, which started up in the spring term of 2020, and the SFU Migrant Students United, which we have been an active part of this year. Another big, and I hope not too boring, piece to go through is the organizational development piece. And a little bit of background around why, this is important and why we think this is important is because the SFSS at the end of the day is a student created and a student run organization. And I really do believe that we should, take the time to learn the history behind the student society and actually take the time to make provisions to ensure that power stays within the hands of students and make sure that that is shared. And I apologize, Corbett, your role is not boring, but I will definitely try to sell it a little bit here. A major thing that we did was we completed our administrative staff restructuring, which freed up $400,000 to expand student supports and financial services. And the biggest piece about this, and I think the financial piece is a bonus, but I think the more important thing is that we were able to reallocate decision-making power into the hands of students. This continued during our annual general meeting bylaw changes, where the board of directors has now officially, as of tomorrow, transitioned to council, in which there are going to be more students from different faculty, departments, student unions, constituency groups, and more that have a say when it comes to the decisions that the SFSS makes. And as a part of this and the part of the learning and the knowledge and kind of ensuring the transition of the SFSS history, we have been participating in board development sessions, learning about things like governance and annual planning, employer responsibilities and the collective agreement bargaining, and then doing specific training session to make sure that we are able to provide advocacy in a way that is knowledgeable and informed. So anti-oppression, anti-ableism, and anti-racism training and more. Oh, and also shout out to the Peak for that amazing graphic in which a number of our board members were actually drawn up in cartoon form. I thought that was very cool. So I'll expand a little bit on the organizational development piece. We've made a number of really cool new hires this year, including our operations organizer, board organizer, accessibility assistant, Black Student Support Center and coordinator, and the student advocacy office and coordinator. And a lot of these are going to be very student-facing roles in which we are able to provide one-on-one support to students, to be able to provide support to student groups like like SOCA, and to actually have a little bit more support for the board as well when it comes to operations and with kind of board mobilization. We have also officially moved into the student union building. I know that this is a project that has been on the docket for a very long time, and we are looking forward to inviting students in and welcoming you into your new building in the very near future. We've also been able to allocate space for the Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance and to reallocate space for students in Caribbean and African ancestry and create a multi-faith prayer room. These agreements have been signed and will be filed at this meeting. So with regard to the organizational development, kind of to tie this all up, the main focus behind these is that we want to see improved transparency, accountability, and we want to see that democratic and member-driven budgeting, et cetera, and major decision-making like those pieces are kind of the foundation of the SFSS. So we want to make sure that our minutes are uploaded on a timely basis, that committee and board hours are tracked, that our investment implementation plan is well developed and transparent for our membership to take a look at, and to take on projects like the participatory budget pilot project, in which students can actually give us feedback and give the board an idea of what they'd like to see their student fees spent on. So the working relationships are the backbone of the SFSS, and we've worked with a number of really great groups, clubs, coalitions, and more to get a lot of this work done. I will not be reading this entire list, but you can see we have worked with a number of student organizations, SFU affiliated groups and otherwise. We've worked with Indigenous community groups, Black community groups, and different student unions, or rather called student societies in this part of the country. And other groups that we work with included Migrant Students United on the postgraduate work permit campaign. The Peak has been attending our meetings all year and been providing reporting on the different initiatives that the SFSS is working on. A number of our board members are also members of SFU Senate and make up the Student Senate Caucus, and Burnaby Neighborhood House gets a special shout out for helping us to facilitate the Food Hub project. Media presence has also been, I think, something quite exciting for the SFSS, as it has been able to give us a little more reach and a little more power to actually connect with students and community members in the absence of being able to meet in person. And we'll talk a little bit about the big pieces that we were able to share with the media in a bit. So we have been doing months in review. This has been put together by our faculty rep for communications, art, and technology, Heather, who has been diligent in making sure to help us report kind of the big projects that the boards have been working on a month-to-month basis. The Peak has always been a great source for us to reach out to share some of the news that we've been working on, including the call to SFU to re-implement pass and fail grading, etc. And we've also been able to share pieces within local and national news about the Burnaby Mountain Gondola, about student finances, the tuition condemnation vote, and so much more. You can find all of these articles and videos online, and I think that our media presence this year was very special. And this is just a snippet of some of the pieces. And myself and Gabe and some other VP external were all able to participate in a number of these pieces to make sure that the message and the vision of the SFSS was shared widely with the greater community. So that does bring our presentation to an end, and I wanted to extend a massive thank you to the students, the SFSS staff who have been working with us very diligently and during this really strange and difficult and scary time to help us keep the SFSS running to the best of its abilities, to the grassroots and community organizers who have provided us with knowledge and support and know-how and expertise that has been really crucial to making sure that we're able to work for students as we'd like to see. We've also been able to work with so many supportive SFU departments and partners and faculty members, etc., and wanted to give a special shout out to them. A shout out to board and to council as well, and to council for being a real place for the SFSS to look back at itself and hear from student representatives as to what was going on, what we could do better, and to be that accountability piece for us. But I did want to circle back to the students part, because without students, there would be no SFSS, there would be no service provision, and there would be no advocacy voice centralized for students at SFU. I really do believe that we are stronger when we band together on pieces that are important to us. And I really do want to thank the membership for getting through this difficult year. I know for the most part, you know, a lot of students have a number of things to worry about, including personal lives and jobs and academics, etc. So I hope that the SFSS has been able to support you even in a minor way during this very strange and difficult year. And I did also want to say a huge thank you for allowing me and for my amazing team of board members to represent students this year. I'm so grateful. This marks the end of 2 years for me with the SFSS, and it has been such an amazing and joyful and terrifying time at times. And I feel so honored to have been able to serve as a president of the Student Society this year. And one thing that I think is quite cool, and that is going to hold a very special place in my heart, is as the students elected me as the first Black hijabi woman to be the president of the SFSS, which I think is kind of cool, and is something I will definitely share with my sisters and with other, you know, young Black women to come as well. So thank you so much. I know that the platform that myself and a number of other folks ran on was building student power. I think that that is a long-term goal, and I think that that's something that is going to take some time. But with, you know, the membership that we have who are dedicated to, you know, creating communities of care for each other, that is very, very possible. So the biggest thank you of all time. Yeah, thanks. All right. Cool. So one thing I'd like to say as well is for any staff who are joining us who would like to leave, not a worry at all. Thank you so much for joining. If you've updated your your mailing address recently by any chance, please let us know ASAP, because there should be a special little something coming in the mail for you as a thank you for all the work that you've done this year during this very strange year. We appreciate you so much and couldn't get any of it done without you. You guys are awesome and I'll miss you very much. All right, cool. So I think now we can probably move on to some of the less exciting parts of the agenda. No offense, Corbett and Gabe. But one piece, and thank you, Brianna, for flagging this, is I think we may have missed the ratification of regrets. So I'd like to circle back to that piece now before we move on. All right, so so the motion reads, be it resolved to ratify regrets from Mehtab Gill. Would someone like to move this motion?
I'll move.
Wisha moves. Would someone like to second?
Gabe.
Gabe seconds, you were the loudest. So Mehtab did have a deferred exam and let me know that he is going to be writing that today. So I did express my good luck to him, the academic piece. So I think that that makes sense. Is there any discussion on the regrets today? All right, if not, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent. Please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. All right, seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. And now we will move into reports from committees, starting with the University and Academic Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Asab. So as VP University Relations, I was really honored and to have the privilege to serve as the chair of the University and Academic Affairs Committee. And I really want to give a huge shout out to all the board members and all of the student at-larges who sat on this committee for the entire year and really brought a lot of amazing ideas to the group and put in a lot of effort into working on a lot of projects that we worked on this year. We worked on a number of really amazing projects. I think starting off at the beginning of the year, we struck a working group on, emergency response and student engagement that was led by our VP External Samad. And this group really put together an amazing program, the Food Hub program that was very successful, I would think, in the summer term, and really provided a lot of support for students experiencing food insecurity within our community, especially during such a uncertain time as it was, it still is, but especially was back then around the summer, just kind of the initial months of the pandemic. I also want to give a shout out to Nafonia and Anuki, who led the mandatory anti-racism education working group. And they led multiple workshops this elected term around anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism. I had the honor of attending one of those workshops, and it was utterly fantastic. And I'm hoping that this work around bringing in these types of workshops can continue into many years to come. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you folks. I also wanted to give a shout out to the folks who helped plan the COVID-19 town hall, namely Balkis and the COVID-19 coalition as it was established back in the summer of 2020. This was a really amazing event that really mobilized students around the idea that education as we knew it before COVID is not the same as it is now online. And it really drove students to come to our annual general meeting in October. And, we had 600 students. Over 90% of those students voted in favor to condemn SFU for their tuition hikes back in spring 2020, just as the pandemic was taking hold. So that was an amazing success. The pass credit, no credit grading scheme, the UAA committee really helped bring that to fruition and helped advocate that and propel that into the public eye and help bring that to the SFU Senate, which inevitably passed. And I think that it has helped a lot of students where we could during this time. And a number of other projects that we worked on were stopping exam invigilation and proctoring so that, students' privacy can be protected during the COVID-19 pandemic. Austin and I continued to work on, I will be continuing to work on the Burnaby Mountain Gondola project advocacy into the next year. And I really want to give a shout out to Austin as well for all of her hard work on the gondola, presenting to Burnaby City Council, meeting with Burnaby City councilors and the mayor, doing multiple news interviews to get students' voices out there. Your advocacy has been huge on the gondola. So big ups to you, Austin. And, we continue to work on open educational resources initiatives and decreasing the cost of course materials. And here I really want to give a huge shout out to our education rep, Emerly, who has been for 2 years now a big proponent of open educational resources, and credit is really due to her for all of the work that she has done on OER. So that there are probably a couple of projects that I'm missing, but I just want to say that it has been amazing to be leading this committee and to have worked with such amazing people. And I know that our incoming VP University and Academic Affairs, Serena, will do just as an amazing job. And I have all faith that it will continue to be something amazing.
Thank you, Gabe. Much appreciated. So if there are any comments or questions, please feel free to list yourself in the chat. All right, if not, we will now move on to the Governance Committee report, which is also going to be from Gabe. So Gabe, you have the floor again.
Thanks, Asa. I was also the chair of the Governance Committee this year, which is very much outside of my portfolio, but it was quite a wild ride to, just to say the least, to be chair of Governance Committee this year. I would say that governance was probably one of the busiest, maybe most ambitious committees of the board this year. And we did a lot. From the beginning of the year, we worked on a number of policy amendments that, we established a number of committees at the very start of the year. We worked with myself, Balkis, and Heather. We worked to create a standing order for a new committee, the First Year Engagement Committee, which continues to be a standing committee of the SFSS, and I hope that it will continue to be a place where we can advance advocacy and events for first-year students at SFU. And big shout out to Matt and Balkis for establishing the first SFSS BIPOC committee, which is the first time really that BIPOC students have had guaranteed space within the SFSS to advocate and discuss issues relevant to Black and Indigenous students at SFU. BIPOC committee has also been incredible this past year, and it wouldn't be without the leadership of the co-chairs of that committee, Balkis and Matt. So big shout out to you too as well. The governance committee took on a big portion of our staff governance and administrative restructuring back in June 2020. And mainly led with the policy end of things, moving away from the Carver model to a model that we refer to now as the policy administrative hybrid, where less power is delegated to union excluded administrative staff, and putting the power back in the hands of students to make decisions that accurately reflect the will of the students, and really honoring the fact that students are democratically elected into these positions and should be accountable for all of the decisions that are being made within the organization. The bylaw review was a thing that happened. It was a big thing that happened, and I want to give a huge shout out to not only the people on the governance committee, but on the board of directors too, and council as well, and all the student union execs and undergraduate students who helped make this a possibility. This is probably one of the most substantial shifts in organizational structure that the SFSS has experienced in decades. And it's all because, we recognize that the SFSS really has not been working well for a number of years. And by bringing forward the bylaw amendments that we did, and thank goodness they successfully passed, it propelled the organization into a direction of more democratic decision-making, more representative decision-making bodies. And, you know, what I'm most excited about is, you know, there's now guaranteed seats for equity-seeking groups on council, which has never been a guarantee before on our board of directors ever. So that is a big, big, big win. And, you know, I could go on and talking about all the minor policy amendments that we did throughout the year, but I won't because apparently it's boring. But you know, there was a lot that happened, a lot of processes that were updated to make our decision making and governance more transparent and more clear and more accessible for our students. So big shout out to the governance committee this year, and hopefully everyone can read the report in more detail. And it looks like our incoming VP internal and organizational development, Corbett Gildersleeve, will be the incoming governance committee chair. So I have all faith in Corbett as well that the governance committee will be bopping next year just as it was bopping this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Gabe, for the presentation. If anyone has any comments or questions, please feel free to list yourself in the chat. All right, if not, we will move on to our next report from committee, which I believe is from the events or accessibility committee. So Jennifer, the floor is all yours.
Awesome, thank you so much. So this year was also quite an ambitious year for the Accessibility Committee. We did quite a few things. A lot of the projects are still ongoing. So we hired the Accessibility Designated Assistant, Brianna, and she has been amazing. She's been helping us a lot with the accessibility standard policy appendices, like the accessible in-person and online checklists to make events more accessible. And she's also been helping us with the accessibility fund request forms to make the forms themselves easier to fill out and more accessible. And another appendix is, and then we created various guides on how to book cart captioning to make events more accessible, and a guide on how to request funding from the accessibility fund. And Brianna has also been working on a list of accessibility supplies for the student union building. Some of the other projects that are ongoing include the Student Union Building Accessibility Audit to improve the accessibility of the Student Union Building. And we're also having an accessibility bursary to help students experiencing barriers get more support. Huge shout out to Emily, our education rep, as well, for working hard on the psychoeducational assessments for the past 2 years. She's been spending a lot of time liaising between student care and SFSS Accessibility Committee and SFU Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance.
Perfect, thank you, Jennifer. If anyone has any comments or questions, please feel free to list yourself in the chat. All right, if not, we will move on to, I believe, our last report from committee, which is from the events committee. So Jennifer, the floor is yours once again.
Yeah, thanks, Asif. So we had many fun events and social media campaigns and giveaways like the Stranger Things Murder Mystery Night and holiday giveaways, which helped students de-stress during finals in December by doing fun activities on Instagram for the chance to win a prize. We also had fun collaborations like collaborating with Health and Counseling, an SFU department on Mental Health Monday, which was a mental health workshop teaching students how to improve their mental health. And then we also collaborated with SFU Global Student Center for a Global Talent Night, and we collaborated with SFU Recreation on pets and yoga. We also collaborated with multiple student groups like for Cultural Week and Dance Week. We had workshops like teaching students skills like cooking, bullet journaling, time management. We had an origami rose workshop and a lot more. We also had a lot of trivia nights, and lots of giveaways, like Mental Health Mondays giveaways every month, which encourage students to think about their health and well-being.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will open up the chat once again for anyone who has any comments or questions. But again, I don't think I can shout out the events committee enough times for helping to connect the students during such a weird and difficult year. I think I saw one of our events committee at-large student reps here. Either way, shout out to all of them. So we will now move on to the new business in the absence of any questions or comments, starting with the Finance and Administrative Services Committee recommendation on council remuneration and proposal. So the motion reads as follows. Whereas the Finance and Administrative Services Committee has received a stipend remuneration motion through the SFSS Council remuneration proposal. Whereas there has been consultation conducted with the board, council, and undergraduate students through meetings and a survey. Whereas the survey shows support for the counselors and executive committee members receiving a stipend. Survey responses stated that student labor should be compensated and that a living wage stipend would help marginalized students participate as student leaders. Whereas the living wage model is easier to implement and provides council and executive committee members with a base living wage stipend. Whereas the Finance and Administrative Services Committee recommends to the board and council to adopt the living wage model as outlined in the SFSS Council remuneration proposal. Be it resolved that the board of directors adopt the living wage model as outlined in the SFSS Council remuneration proposal. Be it further resolved to amend R2 to read. Be it further resolved to amend R2 to read 2.13 in recognition of the time non-executive counselors volunteer. The society provides a stipend of $350 per month starting in May 1st, 2021 and $390 per month starting in May 1st, 2022 and thereafter. 2.14 in recognition of the time the council vice chair volunteers, the society provides a stipend of $525 per month starting in May 1st, 2021, $585 per month starting May 1st, 2022 and thereafter. Be it further resolved to amend R3 to read 3.13 in recognition of the time executive officers volunteer, the society provides a stipend of $2,100 per month starting May 1st, 2021 and $2,340 per month starting in May 1st, 2022 and thereafter. Be it further resolved to repeal R15.3 and R15.7 and renumber the R15. Be it further resolved to amend R4 to read 4.3 remuneration paid to council members shall be in the form of semi-monthly payments. Payroll processing work will occur on the first business day on the 15th and the last business day of the month. Be it further resolved to repeal 4.4. Be it further resolved that due to the mixed feedback concerning the way that accountability and stipend reductions occur, R14.5 to R14.9 should be reviewed with council and amended at a future date. All right. Would someone like to move this motion?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Would someone like to second?
Gabe seconds.
Gabe seconds. All right. Corbett, the floor is yours.
Thank you also for reading out that very, very long motion. This is the reason why it's so long is it's a expansion of the previous notice of motion I added 3 weeks ago at the board meeting 3 weeks ago, where the motion was to pass the FAST recommendation, or the recommendation made by FAST, as well as to pass the relevant policies that would have to be changed based on that recommendation, which is what was listed out in quite a bit of detail. So just to go step back a bit. So this, excuse me, just opening up some notes. So this proposal is a result of, effectively a result of the AGM, the annual general meetings bylaw changes that were approved back in late October. As part of that change with the goal of having a combined executive council and executive committee and a student council, we had to explore how remuneration, the stipends and reimbursements, all that could potentially change. Initially at that meeting, one idea that was lightly pitched was the idea of redistributing, or one possibility would redistribute funds from the positions like the faculty rep and at-large reps that were be removed, and put it back into and breaking up with the rest of the council representatives. And after that, I started exploring that option, but then I asked staff, the campaigns policy and research coordinator, to look at more into the history of the SFSS stipends, to understand, how it got structured, the way it was, this particular model. And in January, I received the report, and it showed some really interesting things. One was that our stipends hadn't changed since 2008. That was the last time it was set with executive and faculty and at-large reps. And then I believe later down the road, it was the council stipends of $35 per meeting was set. And then when you look at the amount of work on average board members were doing, and you run the numbers on that, it worked out to be that stipend was just below minimum wage as it is currently now. And so like there hasn't been a change in this remuneration since for 13 years now. And so, inflation and increasing costs have really made it difficult. And what I've seen this year, especially as in my role as VP Finance, is more members have had to work like second jobs just to be able to afford their cost of living, and on top of trying to also be board members. And that's really impacts the ability to be a board member, to be able to do your job, to be able to make sure you're prepared for meetings, be able to contribute to committees and the projects, and basically serve your membership. And so I explored the idea of the cost for changing the model, especially with this new governance structure, to have a different base, a base of a living wage. And looking at our budgets and our potential future forecasts for the next couple years, the pandemic this year had impact on our revenue. It'll have another further effect in the next year. I developed a plan to split that up to reach the goal of a base living wage model over multiple years. I presented this proposal to the board in very early March, and then got some feedback and read it and improved it, and then submitted it to council because they would be impacted by this change, and so they need to be consulted with. And then since then, there's been there was an expansion on feedback from doing a survey with students, doing some multiple meetings with council for discussions around asking questions and raising concerns. Everything from, when you're looking at the budgeting for this, did you think about putting money into clubs and student unions instead? Or why is counselor members being paid, but not the president of a student union being paid, or these other things? And so we went through and explained, the policies related and the rules related through like Societies Act and our bylaws and such, to answer questions. And just try to go as much detail and we had the surveys go out through our email, through social media. We had, asked student members and council staff to go and reach out to their own student groups and people to get feedback. And we ended up having 318 responses to the survey, with a small area, the yes/no vote side of things for a number of questions were just a bit above yes in most cases for counselors and executives receiving a stipend. There were some comments back and forth about the amounts and stuff to be set. Also concerns about the way the accountability measures that we have currently in policy, if they were sufficient enough or not sufficient enough. And you can read about this it's linked into the proposal, the fast recommendation proposal with in the appendix. So I think I've kind of covered everything all the way to pretty much the lead up to this. FAST had a meeting on this last Tuesday, and they reviewed all the different feedback students are given, and it was approved. They approved the recommendation to board and council to use the living wage model, and then the recommended changes to the relevant policies to make that a reality. And so I'm here to ask again for the board to pass this proposal. And yeah, and so that this sorry, a little bit nervous. The timeline for this proposal, if approved today, will impact the board, this new council going forward for May 1st. So starting tomorrow. So, and if you have any questions or concerns or anything else, please let me know.
Perfect. Thank you, Corbett, for the thorough debrief on the process this far. The chat is open, so folks who would like to ask any questions or to comment on this, please list yourself in the chat. And for anyone who's joining us who's not a board member, you're more than welcome to list in the chat as well. However, priority for speaking will be given to board members. Gabe, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Corbett for the thorough explanation of the survey and the reasoning behind the living wage model. I did want to motivate in favor of this motion today. And I just want to, explain that I am a strong believer that any labor that is being done by anyone should be compensated, and should be compensated according to the amount of work and hours that those folks are putting in. Being on the board for the past year, it is very clear to me that these could very well be full-time jobs. However, we're all students, and it is not possible to be in these positions full-time, given that we all need to be enrolled in classes just like all other students. So for me in particular, I think that being on the board and having to take classes and deal with the regular challenges of being a student has been one of the most challenging balancing acts of my life. And so I think that this living wage model is an appropriate direction to go in, also considering that we haven't had a remuneration model change in 13 years. That really stands out to me. It's quite shocking, to be honest. And I think it's definitely time for a change and time to correct that. And I think that with the new governance change, with council becoming the legal board of directors, I think this is a perfect opportunity to be providing proper compensation so that as we head into this new system, that folks are able to participate within the system of council and within the system of the executive committee to their fullest ability and potential. So I'll be voting in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Gabe. Next on the list, we have Bilqis.
So I'll be voting in favor of this motion because when we talk about systemic equity or removing systemic barriers for people to get involved in things, this is a prime example. This paying people more means that for their labor as compensation means that they can literally afford to get involved. There are plenty of students on campus who I know would love to be involved to a very deep extent, and they just can't afford to because they need to do work. They need to work for their living. So I think this is just one way to make our student society much more equitable and inclusive.
Thank you, Bilqis. Next on the list, we have Weitran.
I'd like to speak in favor as well as this motion. I think like Baki said, we need to move towards more equitable position in the SFSS, and there's already a lot of barriers other than financial barriers that prevent students from being in this position, and it is a real huge privilege to be here. And I think most of the time our students understand what marginal students like struggle with, and they're the ones who need the most advocacy, needs to be heard the most, and think moving towards closer to lowering that barrier, however we can. The financial barrier would really be a big help in getting students, encouraging students to run for these positions and be in these positions. So that's why I'll be voting in favor as well.
Thank you, Wei Chun. And thank you for the board members for your comments. I think that it definitely covers some of the points that I would have liked to touch on. One thing that I would like to add is, we definitely hear the student feedback loud and clear with regards to the piece around accountability and transparency. And part of the reason that, we wanted to put that motion forward at the annual general meeting to expand the board of directors to council is to have a more accountable, more transparent society. And I know that some of those things may sound like SFSS buzzwords in some ways, but by having more student reps who are actually keeping their eyes on what the executive is doing, having committees such as the Oversight Committee, which has the power to censure and reprimand the executive should they not fulfill their duties, and then also accountability for councillors who have to report back to their constituencies and their groups that have elected them as representatives as well. So I really do hope with this new structure, the accountability piece still stays intact, but the piece around, something that I think is more clear now than ever is that cost drivers and students' lives are at an all-time high right now. That includes rent, that includes tuition, that includes healthcare, and so much more. That means that working class students are just not able to put in large amounts of time uncompensated into anything. And for a lot of folks, it means that if you even wanted to run for an executive position, if it didn't pay enough, you just wouldn't be able to do it. And that restricts these kinds of positions to folks who are not part of the working class and who aren't, I think representative of what a lot of us face on a day-to-day basis. So I really am in favor of this proposal, and I'm hoping that that it passes. I will be voting in favor. Sude, please go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that also. But I also like to just voice my support for the living wage model, because students just can't afford to get involved in student politics, as it's been said before, especially international students. When we look at how international students are involved in SFU politics, they're not really involved, because if you look at the tuition fees they're paying, they're really focused on their academics. It's really luxury to get involved in politics, especially if you're an international student. And I think that's why a lot of students would be more incentivized and empowered to take part and just voice their concerns, or just be a voice here at SFU. And also with the IS International Student Advocacy Group, that's now coming to live after a few years. They've voiced their excitement with the executive team and other members that now the international students can actually take part and they can be compensated for their hard work. So this is really huge.
Thank you, Sude. Heather, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So just like speaking in favor of the motion, and like what Sude mentioned about international students as well, just like to clear out something. Like there's a perception about international students that the tuition is increasing, but you don't have to worry, your parents are rich, or like you guys are rich. So it's a huge burden on our shoulders that I've faced in the past 3 years as well. And I would very much like to agree with Sude as well, that the reason international students are not that involved is because they have this huge burden of tuition fees as well. And with that, I would also like to say a huge thank you to Wei Chun and Sude for working for the International Student Advocacy Group.
Thank you, Heather. Marie, go ahead.
I just want to say that I'm encouraging everyone to, vote in favor for this, because I think when we call on marginalized students to actually take space in governance, we also are called on to make that space adequate for those students as well. And that also means supporting them financially and making sure, that space is actually safe for them. So I think it's really important to be supporting this and supporting the living wage.
Thank you, Marie. So it looks like we have exhausted the list. And based on conversation, I will be seeking unanimous consent on this vote, but before we get to that, I wanted to make sure that folks had a chance to all speak to it. So if there's something that you would like to say, please list yourself. Corbett, did you have an amendment to this motion?
Hi. So originally I was planning to amend it so that it was more specific to what it was listed in the notice of motion 3 weeks ago, but it would really be one line. It's basically, and as I explained to my talk, that it's that this particular motion is just an expansion of that motion, really, that from 3 weeks ago.
All right, but no issues with the actual motion as it stands with regard to execution?
No.
All right, so in that case, I will be going over the voting process. I can read over the be it resolved clauses. So give me a quick moment. So be it resolved that the Board of Directors adopt the living wage model as outlined in the SFSS Council remuneration proposal. Be it resolved to amend R2 to read R2.13 in recognition of the time non-executive counselors volunteer. The society provides a stipend of $350 per month starting in May 1st, 2021 and $390 per month starting in May 21st, 2022 and thereafter. 2.14 in recognition of the time the council vice chair volunteers. The society provides a stipend of $525 per month starting in May 1st, 2021 and $585 per month starting in May 1st, 2022 and thereafter. Be it further resolved to amend R3 to read in recognition of the time executive officers volunteer. The society provides a stipend of $2,100 per month starting in May 1st, 2021 and $2,340 per month starting in May 1st, 2022 and thereafter. Be it further resolved to repeal R15.3 to R15.7 and renumber the R15. Be it further resolved to amend R4 to read 4.3 remuneration paid to council members shall be in the form of semi-monthly payments. Payroll processing will occur on the first business day on the 15th and the last business day of the month. Be it further resolved to repeal 4.4. Be it further resolved that due to mixed feedback concerning the way that accountability and stipend reductions occur, R4.5 to R4.19 should be reviewed with council and amended at a future date. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain, and I will give this a moment. All right, seeing none, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, agreement with Fraser International College. So whereas the Simon Fraser Student Society initially entered into a service sharing agreement with Fraser International College on January 2nd, 2019 for a term of 2 years. Whereas the agreement will see the SFSS continue to provide a broad range of service and support for students attending Fraser International College. Whereas the agreement has been extended as of January 2nd, 2021 for a term of 5 years. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors receive and file the attached services agreement with Fraser International College. I will move this motion. Would someone like to second?
Corbett seconds.
Thank you, Corbett. All right, so to give a little bit of a background on this piece, as I've amended the agenda to add this, at the beginning of the year, myself, our VP Finance Corbett, our VP External Samad, and our FCAT rep Heather met with some of the folks at Fraser International College, including their principal Charla, to discuss the agreement, which was due to expire as of January 2021. And we came to the conclusion that this is something that both of our groups see value in and would like to see continue for the year. And essentially what this is that services provided by the SFSS include out on campus and Women's Center, support for from our campaigns research and policy office for policy development, election support, and more. Being able to book rooms in SFSS spaces, support in booking rooms to SFSS controlled spaces, event planning, access to clubs, access to the free legal clinic, and access to food bank, etc. And with these pieces, FIC students do pay fees to the SFSS, specifically to services and support, the Student Society Building Fund, the Food Bank fee, the Accessibility Fund, and the Build SFU fee. So by being able to continue this agreement for the next 5 years, this is going to ensure that FIC students, as they transition into SFU, are able to receive support, particularly, and for us to be able to provide that to them and to gain some revenue as well. So this agreement has been signed and we are receiving and filing it today. So I'll open up the floor to anyone who has any questions or comments. Yes, I know this is kind of more of like a housekeeping piece, but Corbett, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment. As part of the meeting with the FIC and negotiating, I'm happy that we've got this agreement signed. It's 5 years long. That was both something that both sides wanted, and we did all we really did was restructured the contract a little bit, add a few small things that smooth things out, and for the most part, it's pretty much the same. It's just that we now have a more stable. We from a finance perspective, we have much more stable aspect of revenue coming from students, but also from a student society perspective, we also have. We know that we will be working with FIC for the next 5 years, and we can do advocacy initiatives and support and work more towards welcoming FIC students into within the SFS.
Thank you, Corbett. All right. So seeing no folks on the list, I will go over the be it resolved clause and then we can put this item to a vote. So, oh, Gabe, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, I know it's not particularly in this agreement, but I was wondering if there had been any discussions around like associate membership for FIC students.
Yes, I can update on that piece. I know it's not fully related to this exact motion, but essentially with that, I think it would be in the best interest of the society to do a referenda with FIC. This is something that we received advice from our lawyers, and this is something that conversations with SFU, FIC, and SFSS should continue in the upcoming year. As of right now, the FIC members are not members, but thanks to our bylaw changes, we now have the provisions for associate membership should the members of FIC desire to join. So that's something that I hope that one of the boards incoming is interested in looking into, running a referendum to ask FIC students if they are interested in becoming associate members of the SFSS. All right. Again, if you have any comments or questions, please list yourself in the chat. All right. If not, we will put this piece to a vote. So be it resolved that the Board of Directors receive and file the attached services agreement with Fraser International College. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, this motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So we are now going to move on to the sub-activism project. So the motion reads, whereas it's vital for the SFSS to preserve and showcase its history of activism, student power, and nature of the radical SFU campus. Whereas the new Student Union building will serve as a central place for students to connect and organize. Whereas the sub-activism project will inspire and motivate students towards demonstrating collective student power. Whereas the Build SFU Fund was established to build the Student Union building and costs can be expended from it for the construction, improvement, and other such matters related to the building, and has X in the line item for the type of expenditures. Be it resolved that the board approve of the sub-activism project. Be it further resolved that the board allocates $23,921.30 from the Build SFU line item or another relevant line item as determined by the VP Finance for the project. Be it further resolved, the VP Finance be directed to work with the relevant parties for the necessary installation of the project. Be it further resolved that any changes to the selection of images or revision to this activist history project in the future has to be made and passed by a vote of the Board of Directors / Council and not the Exec Committee, staff, or any other committee unless explicitly authorized by the Board of Directors / Council. Would someone like to move this motion?
Wait and move.
Moves. Would someone like to second?
Jennifer seconds.
For seconds. All right. Which one is the mover of the motion? The floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, how this project came about and why we're doing this is because we actually have a lot of archives of our old SFSS photos, activism and protests and rallies as far back as like the 60s. But we did not have possession of those. It was given to us when the SFU general manager ended his employment, and he handed the boxes over to the office. And that box was full of pictures and just documents of our history and stuff like that. So I think it was really important for us to be showcasing that in the sub and really show students just how radical and how there was just so much student activism on campus, but it was just kind of lost over the years, kind of went up and down. But I think now it's kind of sort of coming back up again. But I think students really need to see that and see that there's a history of that, because even myself coming to SFU, like 3 years here, I did not know of this radical history of the student activism and student power. And I think it's a really good opportunity, especially with now the sub building that we have. There's a lot of empty spaces on the walls that need decorations and stuff like that. So I think the photos will be a really good opportunity to showcase that and really empower students. And looking at those photos will feel inspired to have collective student power. So I'm just gonna just show kind of what the picture looks like. Can everyone see my screen? Good. Yeah, so I won't go through all the pictures, but I'll just go through a few of them just to show what it looks like. So one of them was SFSS Deadball Rally, where in 1998, students actually stacked bricks on Convo Mall, and each of the bricks had students that their student debts on it, written on it. And it was stacked on Convo Mall as like a protest and action against, just increasing student debt, increasing tuition fees. And these are just kind of locations. If you look at the document that's attached on the briefing note, it shows kind of location where in the sub is going to be put and how big it is. Here's some rallies for Stop the Cuts, again with tuition. Just again, like tuition rallies have just been so, there's been so many tuition rallies that SFSS have been part of over the past years in the APEC action. And these are kind of like the recent ones as well, with the National Student Walkout for Westwood and a solidarity action like in March 2020. The RA unionization as well. So there are some recent photos that are included in these in this project as well, not just old photos. And really huge shout out and credit to TSSU who gave us these photos and allowed us to use it in this project, because SFSS also endorsed this campaign and was kind of part of it. Just past tuition rallies, you can see like on the left and right, these are like identical locations. And it was just the same with tuition rallies. So 1990 versus like 2019, exact location, almost the same picture. But yeah, these are kind of just where it looks like and where it's going to be put in the sub. Please feel free to take a look in the attached document in the briefing note if you want to kind of look on the specifics of the photos. And here are some really old ones from the 60s to 80s. And you really can see how alive like student activism was on the SFU campus. So those are the photos. I'll kind of pass it off to Jen to kind of talk about the kind of financial costs and like what it costs to like kind of blow up those photos to really huge sizes and framing them and like installing them.
Yeah, Rachel, sorry, can you continue screen sharing in the briefing note? Everyone, I think, has access to the briefing note, but yeah, this is kind of a layout of all the costs. So you can see the titles of all of the different like frames. And then the size there is like, because it's more of a collage, as you saw in Rachel's presentation, there's like multiple pictures in a frame. So I just kind of estimated the sizing based on like how big the frame was. And then I looked at the London Drugs website. I called them this morning and they said they can do photo enlargements. and printing. And they told me to check the prices on the website, so that's what I did. And then I just added up all those prices. They did say for enlargement, it's $2 per photo in addition to whatever price is on the website. So I just added $2 for everything. And then I called Michael's this morning as well and got pricing for the frames. We have a pretty big frame. It's like 70 inches. So I got an estimate on that. And then I also got and frames like for other photos. And then added a 30% contingency because pricing can get, like printing can get really expensive. And then it came out to be around $23,921.30, which is what is in the motion.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for overview of the project. So today we'll be kind of passing money for this project, and then what's going to happen is probably the next board is going to take this up, get the photos printed and framed, and then install them up as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if there's any question, me and Jennifer can take those and try to answer them.
Thank you, Wei-Chun and Jennifer, for the presentation. One thing that I did want to flag is there is a X in the motion, I believe as a placeholder for the amount left in the Build SFU fund. I'm just trying to pull up our financial statements so that we can replace that. But if anybody has already done that, please share that figure. But I'll open up the chat to any comments or questions.
Yeah, I saw this comment from Anuki. Actually, like when I was doing this project and John was there, our building manager, and he kind of mentioned to us we actually have a mural that we need to put up. It was like a mural painted by students. So we need to kind of look for a place to put a mural as well. But yeah, if in the future, if there's an interest in the future board to like have mural, a bigger mural in the sub, I think that's gonna be really good. But yeah, so mention that John told us that we have to find a place for that mural as well. So
Corbett, you can go ahead.
I would actually just amend out that whole sentence because it's not really necessary. Just like any other motion, we rarely will ever need to list out what's left in a line item. It's just you asked amount for the project and kind of go from there. And I don't have the exact numbers, but yeah, we have more than enough to cover the cost of this project and for Build SFU.
So Corbett, are you moving to amend the motion?
I would like to move to amend the motion to strike out that sentence.
The fourth be it whereas clause?
Yes.
Not the fourth.
Sorry. I can't see it on my screen, so I just...
It is the fourth, I think. The fourth whereas clause.
I'm looking at Jen's doc and there is no X anymore. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, so yeah, so the fourth be it resolved clause to strike and has X in the line item for the type of expenditures. Would someone like to second that amendment to the motion?
you mean the whereas clause, right? Not the be resolved.
The whereas clause, the last whereas clause. Would someone like to second the amendment?
I'll second.
Wei-Chun seconds. Any discussion on the amendment? If not, we'll put the amendment to the vote to strike the last piece of the be it resolved clause. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, the amendment is carried unanimously, and now we are back on the main motion. So folks, comments and questions, please list yourselves on the chat. Belkis, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely voting in favor of this. It's super cool. I think this year we've learned a lot, not just on the ground from our experience and connecting with students, but we've learned so much about SFSS history and activism, and that has really informed us in a few ways. One, it's really inspiring to see like, wow, this was the SFSS, it was amazing. The activism that's already happened, and we can, take that and apply stuff from there. Because as they say, history does repeat itself. So it was practical, but it was also like really inspiring and motivational and part of the community building that I felt personally on this board. And honestly, whenever I share tidbits of SFU activism history with other students, when it comes up in general conversations, people are always a mix of surprised, impressed, intrigued. So I think this is really neat. Thank you for really putting this together.
Thank you, Belkis. Gabe, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Belkis and Jennifer and Wachin, excuse me, for putting together this proposal. I'll be definitely voting in favor of this. And I've been in the student union building a number of times, and a lot of the walls are a bit empty. And I think that by putting up a lot of this, these photographs that remind us of the, SFU's radical history and history of activism and radicalism, I think that it's going to be a pretty amazing touch to the space, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the end product. So I'll definitely be voting in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Gabe. Sude, you can go ahead.
Yes, I also wanted to voice my support, and yeah, thank you so much, Wachin and Jennifer, for putting this hard work and working with this. I think it's a great step towards reviving this, school spirit, community building. It's like Belkis mentioned, it might even strike some kind of interest in students to get involved in like not only student politics, but in any kind of work within SFSS aside from academics. So behind those empty walls, they can see not only the radical history of SFU, but also those student power, the sit-ins, rallies, marches, and how unique SFU is, and for them to be more engaged and involved and feel grateful to be part of this community in a way. So yeah, I think this is a great start.
Thank you, Sude. Yeah, I'm very much in favor of this, and I think it's going to be a great way to, really make our home in the sub and to showcase the roots of the SFSS, and be a piece of history, hopefully, for students to be able to pass by and to enjoy and to see. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the sub and seeing all these pictures up in the near future should this motion pass. If there are no other comments, I will read over the be it resolved clause again, and then we will put the motion to a vote. So be it resolved that the board approve of the sub activism project. Be it further resolved, the board allocates $23,921.30 from the Build SFU line item or another relevant line item as determined by the VP Finance for the project. Be it further resolved that the VP Finance be directed to work with the relevant parties for the necessary installation of the project. Be it further resolved that any changes to the selection of images or revision to this activist history project in the future has to be made and passed by a vote of the board of directors / council and not the executive committee, staff, or any other committee unless explicitly authorized by the board of directors or council. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. All right, seeing none, this motion carries unanimously as amended. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we will now move on to the next motion, which is subspace allocation proposal. The motion reads, whereas the Board of Directors on July 10th, 2020 approved the subspace allocation proposal, whereas the Board tasked President Oscar Mohammed and the VP Finance, Corbett Gildersleeve, to enter into agreements with FNSA, SOCA, DNA, CJSF, MBARC, and SFPIRG on behalf of the Board of Directors, whereas these agreements have been completed and signed. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors receive and file to our corporate records the following letters of agreement and sub-subleases. Sub-sublease CJSF, sub-sublease MBARC, sub-sublease SFPIRG, letter of agreement First Nations Student Association, letter of agreement Students of Caribbean and African Ancestry. Would someone like to move this motion?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Would someone like to second?
Matt. Please.
All right, Corbett, as a mover of the motion, this floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is very similar to the FIC filing we just did, not too long ago, except for in this case, it's two separate sets of agreements that are very, very similar to each other. As I mentioned in the briefing notes, that on July 10th, the board approved us to enter into these agreements. We allocated specific space to specific groups, which later got modified a little bit. For instance, CJSF and MBARC spaces swapped, and then MBARC had one storage room removed from their allocation to save money, and they didn't need the space. But at the end of the day, an allocation versus an actual agreement for the space is not necessarily the same. So it was important for us to get formal agreements with SFPIRG and MBARC and CJSF because they were independent student societies, and then having letter agreements with FNSA, SOCA, and DNA. And that's what we have. So going through the letters of agreement, they've all been agreed upon and signed. Sorry, not letters of agreement. Starting with the subleases. SFPIRG, MBARC, and CJSF have all agreed and signed, and Asad and I have also signed on to these agreements. They lay out, they're more than just a sublease. They also lay out things like the institutional relationship between each group or responsibilities with that relationship, a conflict resolution process, listing out operation costs, termination scenarios, and indemnity, which is like a legal protection aspect. And we both sought legal advice and formation of this agreement and negotiation of the agreement, and all parties are happy. It's also designed too that, in the future, if there is need to change or add any new costs or new agreements, or maybe you find that a particular process didn't necessarily work out very well in practice as opposed to on paper, then both sides can come together to amend the agreement. It's also required of us to have at least one semesterly meeting between the parties just to discuss use of space and any issues, and just kind of maintain the relationship and the communication, because it's very easy when in the past when we have the SFSS and the NBC and a lot of these groups in the rotunda, they're physically very far away. Not really far away, but they feel a lot of times very far away, and it's not great over time for kind of an unintentional divide can form between the two groups. With them being the sub, it's much more important for us to have regular contact and discussions about issues and stuff, so that things don't fester, or the relationship can grow stronger and better. We can have joint programs, joint activities, initiatives, things like that. So going into the letter of agreement for FNSA, SOCA, and DNA, they are also very similar to each other with small tweaks based on the individual group's needs, but they generally lay out the responsibilities for each group, primarily responsibility of the SFS from costing perspectives, staffing for roles for staff support, and if there's any specialty fees like the First Nations Student Fund or Accessibility Fund, or how that works with those particular groups, if they have access or control over it or not. Or if there's a future fee that comes into place, how that's laid out. And it's important that we also have in their language around that these groups are supposed to work with and collaborate with the relevant offices that are in their locations. So Black Student Support Office, First Nation Student Association has Lacey, their coordinator, as well as the Accessibility Center for DNA. And there's a small amount of budgets and for programming and stuff, and it's a collaborative relationship. So it was very important for us to put that out on paper. And so the current status is all of them have been signed. And DNA is actually free to sign, but just from a timing perspective, they need to do it at the next meeting in May. So they will, once they're done, then we'll get it back to them. We could be able to, the next council will be able to file it. But 5 out of 6 are ready to go. And so that's what the motion is for. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Corbett, for the context and for bringing this to the board today. I will open the floor up to any comments or questions from the meeting attendees. So please feel free to list yourself in the chat. So please, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll definitely be voting in favor. I just want to give a bit of context to this motion. The conversation of space on campus with rotunda groups is not a new one. You can trace it, at least this particular conversation, back to all the way 2011. And especially when it kind of sparked and got revived in 2018. This is a really big and important motion. It's a huge deal to me, a lot of our community members, because I think it's just a part of the restorative justice that we, have been talking about this year. And when I say restorative justice, I mean like doing right by what you did wrong. I don't know if that phrase makes sense, but like just trying to fix and redress the harms that were caused. And I know the reason that I personally got involved in the SFSS initially was because it was brought to my attention that there were so many students that were being harmed by some decisions. I was involved with the Black student group on campus called SOCA, and I remember when there was just so much stress and like taxation on our health, honestly, when we were told by the SFSS that we were being evicted. That's when we launched the Black Spaces Matter campaign. I'm aware that other Rotunda community groups also were told that they will no longer have space on campus. And then anyways, it started off as a Black Spaces Matter campaign, and it eventually fed into a whole lot of coalition building, largely, on SOCA students' labor, coalition building. That as well as a combination of other student movements at the same time, like the women's rights movement and tuition freeze now, which also SOCA was a huge part of, mobilizing undergrad students. Like all of that kind of became really big, and it got us to where we are now. Eventually the whole Rotunda came together. The Rotunda groups came together and were launched the students specifically of the Rotunda community launched the Save Our Spaces campaign. And that was a really huge deal when we got the SFSS. And this is before I was, even on the board. I believe ISA was on the board last year at the time. But the board's position on this even then was that the groups would still be, getting evicted. And anyways, I'm really happy that students really came together to work for what they believe in, that we were able to organize successfully, that students were able to just be honest and work hard on this. And yeah, I'm really grateful and so relieved and emotional with this motion. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Bilquis. All right. Are there any other comments or questions? Wei Chun, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to speak in favor of this motion as well, and really, I think it's really important that we like Balkis put in context the history and everything and the harm that has been caused by the SFSS. And this is a really huge step in, redressing that harm and really rebuilding back that relationship with all the equity seeking groups of the Rotunda community. I know a big part of why I ran for this board is because of the subspace issue. I remember attending the silent protests and stuff like that and supporting their campaigns, and really seeing this, coming to life. I guess the purpose why we ran and what we want to see change in the SFSS. It's really amazing to see that, and really a huge shout out to all the Black students in SoCA for all their labors and all their activism that would not have been possible without them.
Thank you, Wei-Chun. Matt, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about what I wanted to say. Like, this has been a long time coming, and I feel like I've said this a lot before, but, I want to say thank you to Balkis for, sharing that, because that was a very difficult time for a lot of community members. And, I specifically remember those instances and seeing the harm that has been caused. And I just want to, I guess, reiterate that I think a reason why a lot of us are sitting on this board today is because we want to leave this place better than we left it. And I feel like the work that's been done and is ongoing is, I think we're trying to do that. And I think by, making sure that these spaces and these communities and folks who are important, that they have these spaces and that they're maintained and they have the support, because that's what we're here to do. And, for all the labor that's been put in, it's not gone unnoticed, because this is happening today and we're able to do that. And I'm really proud to sit, on this board and see these things happen, because I know, I've been hurt a lot of time, and I've also been hurt seeing people, going through these instances where I remember specifically being at the meeting last year when the board was voting on this, and they voted, not in favor. And I specifically remember those, and those stick with me. So sitting here and being able to vote on this in favor changes and redresses a lot of the harm and a lot of trauma that's been caused to community members. And I'm very thankful to be sitting here, and even with, FNSA service agreement and the space allocation, and, that means a lot to a lot of people, and it's going to impact not only folks now, but in the future and incoming undergrads, because these spaces need to be here for them as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Balkis, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to share a historical resource if anyone wants to check it out. With that, I would like to also name people who were actually just witnessed this whole thing. Obviously, Matt and I were very hands-on, directly involved in the organizing, directly harmed, and had the honor of helping out with this. Corbett was also around and played a big role in just being present, and we got to chat governance and all that stuff. SFU, I want to point folks to the fact that SFU SoCA has a well-documented space campaign section on their website, and I would like it noted for this. And I'll just paste it in the chat here. And yeah, just thanks everyone. I know much of this board ran specifically the folks who were a part of SFU Progressives ran with the progressive mandate of this was one of the things that we wanted to address for sure, in addition to building student power and fixing our structures. But space campaign was such a huge deal, and I'm happy that others have also come on board and really seen the value in this, and we got to work together to resolve it.
Thank you, Balkis. All right, so I definitely want to thank everyone for sharing, and I think now might be a good time to finally have a vote on this motion. I think pretty historical. So I'll read over the be it resolved clause again. So be it resolved that the board of directors receive and file to our corporate records the following letters of agreement and subleases. sub-sublease CJSF, sub-sublease Embark, sub-sublease SFPERG, letter of agreement First Nations Student Association, letter of agreement Students of Caribbean and African Ancestry. All those in favor, and based on the conversation, I will be seeking unanimous consent. Please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. All right, seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. All right, so I think now might be a good time to take a 5-minute break. It is 4 o'clock on the dot, but before anybody goes anywhere, I really want to try and get a picture of the meeting attendees before people head out, because I know that people tend to kind of head out. And I think now would be a good time. I'm really glad to have been able to pass this motion at our very last board meeting this year. Jen, we'll give you time to change your shirt, but be fast, please. And folks, if you want to, I don't know, turn your cameras on, tidy up, whatever you want to do, that would be great because I really want to see your faces. Abby, don't worry at all. I'm sure your hair is not a mess. If you could join us, we would really appreciate it. Looking good. Jen is back, SFSS sweater on. And just check in. Heather, I saw your camera just went off. And Poom, if you're able to, and Serena, if you'd like to, and Gabe, I expect you to, so. Gabe, where are you at? I have a feeling I may have said the word break and you may have run. Give me like 30 seconds.
Let's just all unmute and start calling him so that he can hear us from his computer.
I was right, he did run away. Let's take a practice shot without Gabe. Everybody, oh, there he is. All right, everyone, if you could please say cheese. And I'll count down from 3. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Let me get another one. Cheese. Okay, and if anybody has any, I don't know, I really like the heart one we did last time, but that is a bit corny. But if anyone wants to do hearts, let's do that. Okay, but I can't because I need to do the screenshot, so I'll do half a heart. All right. Oh, I'll do like the finger heart. Oh, good idea. Thank you, Brianna. I just saw you do that. All right. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, thanks everyone. I'll extend the break to 4:10. If everybody could be back by 4:10, that would be great. Please enjoy your break. Thanks everyone. Hi everyone, it's 4:10. I hope you guys are filtering back in. If you're here and you can turn your camera on, please do. If not, if you could just emoji, react, or note in the chat that you're back. All right, thanks everyone. We are going to now move back into new business with the motion appointing a staff liaison officer, which reads as follows. So whereas Article 3.3, page 4 of the collective agreement requires that the board appoints a member of the board to be a staff liaison officer, whereas bylaw 410J requires the president to ensure compliance with and enforcement of all relevant collective agreements, employment contracts, and staff relations policies. Whereas an SLO needs to be appointed for the 2021-22 council term, be it resolved to appoint incoming president Gabe Leosis and operations organizer Aisha Khan as a staff liaison officer for the 2021-2022 elected term. Would someone like to move this motion? Matt, would you like, thank you, Matt. Would someone like to second this motion?
Corbett seconds.
Corbett seconds. All right, Matt is, no, I'm kidding. Gabe, you brought this motion forward, so if you'd like to speak to it, you can go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I just walked into the room because my dog held me hostage. Are we voting on the staff liaison officer motion? Okay, cool. So yeah, this is just more of a continuity motion than anything. As per our collective agreement and as per the bylaws, the president serves as the staff liaison officer or one of the staff liaison officers of the SFSS, and seeing as the new term starts tomorrow, it makes sense to appoint the SLO for the incoming year. And as well as our operations organizer, Aisha, to continue serving as SLO for the next year. So that's that. I think it's pretty simple.
Thank you, Gabe. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I have acted as one of the staff liaison officers this past year, and Gabe will be replacing me as president. So if not, I will read over the be it resolved clause, and then we can put this motion to a vote. I think pretty simple. So be it resolved to appoint incoming president Gabe Leosis and operations organizer Aisha Khan as staff liaison officers for the 2021-2022 elected term. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. All right, seeing none, the motion is carried unanimously. Next, we have the appointment of a legal liaison officer. So the motion reads as follows. Whereas, as per bylaw 410I, the president communicates with legal counsel as needed. Be it resolved to appoint incoming president Gabe Leosis as the legal liaison officer for the 2021-2022 council term. Be it further resolved that if counselors or staff require legal advice, the legal liaison officer is notified each time legal consultation is being sought. Be it further resolved that the legal liaison officer shall give direction in consultation with the executive for the selection, changing, or continued usage of specific lawyers in order for the services to be billed to the society. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe.
Moves. Would someone like to second?
Sude.
Seconds. Thank you. All right, Gabe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Asib. So again, this is another continuity motion. Asib, you served as the legal liaison officer for the 2020-2021 board year, and this is just to ensure that this legal liaison officer duty is transferred to me as incoming president for the 2021-2022 council term.
Thank you, Gabe. If I may add one comment to this I think is really helpful for ensuring that we kind of all know what's going on with regard to the society seeking legal advice. Having one person kind of be that point of contact, I think has been very helpful this year. And we've been able to work with our lawyers to get a number of things done, MOUs signed, etc. And it, I think, has actually worked out quite well. So I hope that it does in the upcoming year as well. Are there any comments or questions with regard to this item? All right, if not, I'll read off the be it resolved clause and we'll put it to a vote. So be it resolved to appoint incoming President Gabe Leosis as legal liaison officer for the 2021-2022 council term. Be it further resolved that if councilors or staff require legal advice, the legal liaison officer is notified each time legal consultation is being sought. Be it further resolved that the legal liaison officer shall give direction in consultation with the executive for the selection, changing, or continued usage of specific lawyers in order for the services to be billed to the society. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. All right, so the next motion is with regard to appointing the president to the Collective Agreement Bargaining Committee. The motion reads as follows. Whereas on January 29, 2021, the SFSS Board of Directors appointed President Asim Mohammed to the Bargaining Committee. Whereas the collective bargaining process is ongoing and was not completed before the completion of the 2020-2021 board term. Whereas President Asim Mohammed was the only director on the bargaining committee not to be re-elected for the 2021-2022 elected term. Be it resolved to appoint incoming President Gabe Leosis to the bargaining committee to replace President Asim Mohammed in order to continue negotiating our collective agreement with QB 3338. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe moves this motion.
Gabe moves. Would someone like to second?
Matt
seconds. Thank you, Matt. Gabe, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we have been, or the bargaining committee has been, negotiating our collective agreement with the union that represents our staff, QP Local 3338. And the goal was to try and get the collective agreement ratified at this meeting, the last meeting of our board term. However, bargaining has continued or is not completed and is continuing into the next term. And therefore, there is a requirement to replace the seat that Asib occupied on the bargaining committee and as incoming president and an incoming SLO. It makes sense for me as incoming president to replace Asib on the bargaining committee. And seeing as Corbett and Matt are re-elected to the next executive committee, they will be continuing to serve on the bargaining committee.
Thank you, Gabe. I think this one is quite self-explanatory. Gabe will be taking up a seat on the bargaining committee. Are there any questions or comments with regard to this one? All right, if not, we will put this motion to a vote. So the be it resolved clause reads, be it resolved to appoint incoming president Gabe Leosis to the bargaining committee to replace President Asim Mohammed in order to continue negotiating our collective agreement with QB 3338. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze for a second. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. Seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. All right, so I believe upcoming is the last of some of these housekeeping ones. So appointing signing officers for the 2021-2022 elected term. So the motion reads, be it resolved to appoint incoming President Gabe Leosis, incoming VP Internal and Organizational Development, Corbett Gildersleeve, incoming VP Finance and Services, Almas Pangura, incoming VP University and Academic Affairs, Serena Baines, and Operations Organizer Aisha Khan as signing officers for the 2021-22 council term. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe.
Gabe moves. Would someone like to second?
Sude.
Sude seconds. All right, Gabe. Take it away.
Thank you. This is continuity motion 404 and is intended to ensure that the signing officer roles are passed off to the relevant positions and portfolios. As per the SFSS bylaws, the president, VP Internal, VP Finance, and VP University all serve as signing officers. Aisha currently serves as a signing officer, however, that needs to be renewed for the upcoming year. And so this is what that motion is intended to do. It's more housekeeping than anything.
Thank you, Gabe. And I apologize if you may have mentioned it already. The folks who are signing officers are outlined in our bylaws, so this is just in tandem with our bylaws. Any comments or questions? All right, if not, I will go over the be it resolved clause and then we can put it to a vote. So be it resolved to appoint incoming President Gabe Leosis, incoming VP Internal and Organizational Development, Corbett Gildersleeve, incoming VP Finance and Services, Almas Pangura, incoming VP University and Academic Affairs, Serena Baines, and Operations Organizer, Aisha Khan as signing officers for the 2021-22 council term. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, the motion is carried unanimously. All right, so now we will move into the next motion, which is with regard to the SFSS and SFU Esports Memorandum of Understanding, and the motion reads as follows. Whereas SFU Esports has worked with and presented their proposal for the Sub Gamers Lounge, whereas SFSS and SFU Esports have drafted a Memorandum of Understanding regarding the responsibilities of operating in the Sub Gamers Lounge, be it resolved that the SFSS approves that SFU Esports operates the Sub Gamers Lounge. Be it further resolved that the SFSS approves a Memorandum of Understanding between SFSS and SFU Esports. Be it further resolved to authorize the President and VP Finance to sign onto the Memorandum of Understanding between SFSS and SFU Esports on behalf of the SFSS. Be it further resolved to task the VP Finance with working with SFU Esports to develop a budget for the lounge. Would someone like to move this motion?
Jennifer moves.
Jennifer moves. Would someone like to second?
I'll second.
Wait 10 seconds. All right, so Jennifer is a mover of the motion. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I just sent the link to the relevant documents in the chat. So basically in September, SFU Esports presented a proposal for the Student Union Building Gaming Lounge, and they addressed some of the questions that we had. And at our previous meeting, I think April 9th, we also discussed the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with SFU Esports. And since that meeting, I've consulted with our lawyers, the Student Union Building Manager, John, and other board members regarding this MOU. So if you have the actual MOU document open, I have some significant edits I would like to draw your attention to. It says, if you scroll down under Simon Fraser Student Society responsibilities, it says that we will be responsible for paying for and coordinating upgrades to the Gamers Lounge within reason, liaising with other groups if required. So this means that if we're not able to get sponsorships for equipment due to delays, we will be responsible for paying for equipment like PCs in the Gamers Lounge. Also, sorry if I'm talking really fast. I am reading off a script here from the notes I'm taking. So if you want to read along, you can click the link that I just dropped in the chat. So moving on, it also says that the SFSS will also respond to any Gamers Lounge space booking requests and inform SFU Esports Association of space booking details, such as the date that the space will be used. And this will prevent double booking and conflicting events. So esports execs will be able to use the lounge, but if they want exclusive space usage, they would have to book them with us, and cannot exceed on average 15 hours of exclusive space usage per week, because we want to ensure other people get access to the lounge as well. And it also says SFSS will be responsible for overseeing and managing the use of the Gamers Lounge by groups other than SFU Esports, and such oversight will typically be coordinated by the SFSS Oversight Committee and Society Spaces. I just wanted to draw the board's attention to this committee. It is a new committee according to the policies we just passed at our last meeting, and this committee will be formed in May. And they play an important role in the breach of space protocols section, which I will also go over. If you scroll down to SFU Esports Association responsibilities, it says that SFU Esports will provide staff or volunteers to manage and supervise the Gamers Lounge. This provision is subject to review, and the SFSS may, in its sole discretion, decide to provide SFSS staff to manage and supervise the Gamers Lounge. SFU Esports executives who manage the Gamers Lounge must attend mandatory training sessions as determined by the SFSS each year before managing the Gamers Lounge. So this language kind of gives room for change. We're kind of uncertain how things will go because the Student Union building isn't open. No one's using the Gamers Lounge right now. So the current intent is to have SFU Esports manage the lounge, but depending on how that goes, we may hire either an SFSS staff support person or continue to let Esports manage the lounge. It's kind of hard, again, like the space hasn't been used yet. So moving on to the breach of space protocols section, basically, if there's an issue, either Esports or SFSS can call a meeting to discuss the issue, but if you can't reach a meeting or reach an agreement at that meeting, the SFSS may temporarily suspend access to the Gamers Lounge. An ad hoc committee can be formed with multiple people to resolve any issues, but if that committee cannot reach an agreement, then the SFSS Oversight Committee on Society Spaces, the committee I mentioned earlier, will undertake an investigation. So if you scroll down some more, you can see appendices. Appendix A is the floor plan of the Gamers Lounge area, and Appendix B is the inclusivity and safety guidelines, and we've added a lot here. So we provided resources for learning, like the SFSS issues policies is linked here. And we've also got a definition section defining intersectionality, anti-racism, and universal design, for example. In this section, we also encouraged hosting events in the lounge for marginalized community groups and providing accommodations so the space is safe and accessible for anyone. There is something outlined here saying that if there are any issues, whoever is supervising the Gamers Lounge at the time will intervene and report this incident to the SFSS president without delay. There is a procedure for next steps, like asking the perpetrator to leave after 2 warnings, shutting off their computer, suspending usage of the space, but everything else should follow the breach of space protocols section of the MOU as outlined. I think that's it.
Thank you, Jennifer, for going through all that with us. And I know that Darian is also joining us from SFU Esports. So if you would like to speak to this motion, you're more than welcome to also list yourself in the chat, but I'll open up the floor to any comments or questions. Gabe, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor of this. It looks really solid. I had a chance to look at the MOU before the meeting and thank those folks who worked to put it together. I did, however, just want to flag that the MOU does mention the Oversight Committee on Society Spaces. The standing order for that technically hasn't been created yet. It's kind of just a placeholder in our policies. So this is, I guess, me just kind of a reminder for, I guess, the incoming governance committee chair. Maybe I'm nudging Corbett here a bit to, I guess we probably should be a bit expeditious in creating standing order for that that committee within the first couple of meetings of the council term.
All right, thank you, Gabe. Folks, for any comments or questions, please feel free to list yourselves. I wanted to acknowledge the fact as well that this agreement has taken a lot of time and a lot of effort on the part of SFU Esports Group. So I wanted to thank you guys for your patience with us and getting through this process. And I'm looking forward to, seeing the space open and operational once, the sub is open and we're able to get some of those pieces sorted out. And I'm glad that we are able to come to an agreement and have some of these provisions as well to ensure that students have access to the space, are able to enjoy it, and also are able to be safe in that area too. So I'm glad to see this come to a conclusion-ish soon. All right. So if there are no other comments or questions, I'll read over the be it resolved clause and we can get to a vote. So let me just scroll up again. Be it resolved that the SFSS approves that SFU Esports operates the sub Gamers Lounge. Be it further resolved that the SFSS approves a memorandum of understanding between SFU and SFSS and SFU Esports. Be it further resolved to authorize the president and VP Finance to sign on to the memorandum of understanding between SFSS and SFU Esports on behalf of the SFSS. Be it further resolved to task the VP Finance with working with SFU Esports to develop a budget for the lounge. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. All right. So I believe we've got one more motion on the table. Okay, cool. So this one is with regard to the campaigns and mobilization coordinator. And the motion reads as follows. Whereas the campaigns, policy, and research coordinator position used to be one of the roles to focus, what used to be one role to focus on both campaigns as well as policy research, and the role has been too vast. Whereas it is the intention to split the position to allow for two roles so that there is one staff person focusing on campaigns and mobilization and another focusing on the policy research and community affairs, the latter of which has already been approved. Whereas the campaigns and mobilization coordinator will be vital to the campaigns, advocacy, and mobilizing of students on various social justice, academic justice, racial justice, disability justice, climate justice, and equity issues on and off campus that impact students. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the creation of campaigns mobilizer coordinator position as outlined in the attaching briefing note, BN 2021-0430, campaigns and mobilization coordinator. The position will work with the board and staff to develop and implement campaign strategies that align with key advocacy priorities and approve the accompanying job description. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors strike the hiring committee and appoint the VP Equity and Sustainability for the 2021-2022 year, Marie Haddad, and the VP External Community Affairs 2021-22, Matt Provost, as employer representatives on the hiring committee. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors authorize a hiring committee to make minor changes as agreed upon as necessary in line with this approved job description for the campaigns and mobilization coordinator position. Would someone like to move this motion?
Bilqis.
Bilqis moves. Would someone like to second?
Matt.
Okay.
Matt seconds. All right, Bilqis, as a mover of the motion, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, I believe the motion explains a lot, but the quick rundown is that the SFSS has a vacancy for the previous campaigns, research, and policy coordinator role. Previously, that position has been too vast for one person due to the demands of the policy research part of the role and, the scope of the campaigns that SFSS has been doing and also wants to continue expanding. So we need a staff person position dedicated to overseeing campaign strategizing and implementing, separate from a designated person to focus on conducting in-depth research on policies, history, structure, as needed. So currently, there is a new position underway called the Policy Research and Community Affairs position, which is meant to focus on that in-depth research part. So I understand that process has already started. I'm recommending that we establish, me and Asub, and this has come from previous conversations with other board members, recommend that we establish a campaigns and mobilization coordinator. For short, we can call it CAMC. Let me know if you have, anyways, yeah, CAMC. Also recommend that we approve the job description as outlined. I've also attached it as in addition to this briefing note. It's a separate PDF that you can find, which is going to be attached in the minutes as well. But you can currently find that in your email. And yeah, approve the job description. I also recommend that we strike the hiring CAMC committee today. And I even listed out some dates for recommended approximate timeline for the hiring process. And it spans between April 30 and around mid-June. So whoever is undertaking this, leading this hiring committee, can take that on. The reason, after I've had conversations with several board members on this, the reason that we've included Matt and Marie as the SFSS representatives is that typically you have, the two SFSS reps and then two reps from the union. Matt is the incoming VP External, which will be heavily involved with, mobilizing campaigns in general, also has quite a bit of experience with hiring committees, and also, you know, a lived experience and an eye for equity and social justice, which is critical for this role as well. And then Marie, as our incoming VP Equity and Sustainability, for her history with campaigns and mobilization over the past year, as we've seen demonstrated, as well as also an eye for the equity aspect of things. So I do think they would be really appropriate fits for the hiring committee. So yeah, that is why me and Asad are putting forward this motion.
Perfect. Thank you, Bilqis. All right, I will open up the floor to any comments or questions. Corbett, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to comment and give it some additional history with similar kind of around not just this role, but the campaigns research and policy department. The SFS, at least for periods in, let's say, the early to mid 2000s, had at least 2 dedicated staff people related to often to research campaigns and policy and archiving and things like that. And the titles and shifted from different years, but usually there was one that was kind of dedicated towards campaigns with either the university and or externally, and a person usually focused on governance, policy, research, support, that kind of stuff. And that role got merged in together around 2012, 2013 into what we call now we're calling the Campaigns Research and Policy Coordinator, and that kind of ties in with a lot of the shrinking down of the society's advocacy work, either shifting to be a lobbyist, more just focused on lobbying, or just not really much advocacy at all. You know, resources got shifted over to events and some services and stuff. But our board especially and starting with the last board, wanted to shift more towards advocacy, and it's more than just us as a board going out and working with different student groups and stuff. We also need the infrastructure support from a staffing perspective, to be able to handle more work and have someone to support a lot of these committees, like ECA, the External and Community Affairs and University and Academic Advisory and Equity and BIPOC and a bunch of other areas, for campaigns, for obviously working on other things. So this position, I'm really happy to see this position get created and that we have a hiring committee for it, because it's a long time in coming. And as Balkis mentioned, we are kind of retooling the CFTC role to be more focused on research and supporting community, supporting some different areas of the organization. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Corbett. Matt, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of want to reiterate I'm looking forward to being on this hiring committee and, working with Marie especially. And I think just with the experience this year and also just understanding like the role that we need, I think I would be a very good fit to be on this hiring committee. I'm really looking forward to it and making sure that, it's done in a good way. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Gabe, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Asif. Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor of this motion. Specifically, I want to talk first to, I guess, the role itself. And I think that it's a fantastic idea. I know the campaigns research and policy position was incredibly broad, and a lot was encompassed under that one portfolio, I suppose. And so I think it's really exciting to be splitting this up into 2. And it'll just increase our capacity as a student society to engage in advocacy and activism, and for us to have that staff support for our committees, to have one campaigns position to support the University and Academic Affairs Committee, External and Community Affairs Committee, BIPOC, Equity and Sustainability, and then to have the Policy and Research Coordinator, which is more focused on helping out with Governance Committee and other relevant committees. So I am very much in favor of this, and I know that Matt and Marie will both do fantastically on the hiring committee, and I couldn't think of any two better individuals to be taking up such a role. So excited to see where this goes.
Thank you, Gabe. And Marie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm also really excited for this role and see it being really impactful for the student society as it's been needed, and having a sense of consistency when it comes to activism and activism support, especially for organizers at this university. You know, like students do need that level of resource and that level of dedication on the SFSS staff level. Yeah, and like what Bulky said, it does help burn out a lot of times when you can actually rely on other folks to be, you know, pushing you through, especially since myself, I was a new activist this year, and a lot of the work has been driven by other students and be like learning from other students and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I'm excited to be working alongside Matt as well. You know, Matt's been really helpful in terms of like community organizing, and I've learned a lot from Matt as well. And we've collectively worked together on several campaigns together. So I think with that experience, it will, you know, impact this role and shape it into a good spot. Yeah.
Thank you, Marie. All right, I'm excited to see that this is making some good progress. And I think now that we've exhausted the speakers list, we can move into a vote. I will go over the be it resolved clause once more. So be it resolved that the Board of Directors approve the creation of the Campaigns and Mobilization Coordinator position as outlined in the attached briefing note, BN 2021-0430, Campaigns and Mobilization Coordinator. The position will work with the board and staff to develop and implement campaign strategies that align with key advocacy priorities and approve the accompanying job description. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors strike the hiring committee and appoint the VP Equity and Sustainability 2021-22, Marie Haddad, and the VP External and Community Affairs 2021-22, Matt Provost, as employer representatives on the hiring committee. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors authorize the hiring committee to make minor changes as agreed upon as necessary in line with this approved job description for the Campaigns and Mobilization Coordinator position. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, this motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the end of new business for today. All right, so now we will go into discussion items. The first of which being key return for the sub and MBC. This is an update and just a reminder from last time. I know John, our building manager, very kindly sent out an email letting folks know that he would be in the sub to collect keys from folks. But for anybody who has not yet returned their key, please make sure that you're connecting with Gabe and John to have the discussion. Again, I know people are overseas and may have extenuating circumstances, etc. But please communicate this. And remember, you paid a deposit and you can get your money back if you return your keys. Any comments or questions with regard to this piece? The floor is open and the chat is open. Anki.
Yeah, thanks. So how will the deposit be returned? Is it just like a check that is mailed to us, or is it just like automatically deposited with our paycheck?
I actually don't know. Corbett, do you know anything about that?
Double check. For when it was for staff, we put it in as part of like a payroll thing, but I'll double check with staff itself to themselves to just double check that.
But please.
What is the key return process for board members that are outside of Canada and will be outside?
If you were going to be coming back sometime in the summer, then we could just hang on to it. If it's going to be much longer, because hard to know with COVID and everything else going on. I would just email John and me directly, and we'll sort something out.
to see what works.
All right, any other questions? All right, if not, then I think we're good on this item. Next is with regard to SF-PIRG Transformative Justice Summer School event. So this is something that Gabby, SF-PIRG's new Director of Engagement, I believe it is. Yeah, SF-PIRG's new Director of Engagement connected with Gabe and I about a project that SF-PIRG is planning, and it is called a Transformative Justice Summer School, and it'll be happening in June and July in the upcoming term. Essentially what it is, it's a series of 6 interactive workshops free to all students and community members that will help people to develop their knowledge and skills around organizing for transformative justice, mutual aid, and defunding the police. And Gabby reached out to us to ask a few questions, particularly if we would be interested in co-sponsoring any or all of the events, if we'd be able to provide financial support, and if we have anybody who may be interested and available to speak, particularly on the topic of police and policing, and to provide any suggestions or questions. So with regard to the financial piece, this is definitely something that the incoming board will have to deal with, as it is an expenditure for the upcoming board term. And also, Gabby let me know that they'll be able to let us know what their budget is if we do express interest in providing some financial support. But for the most part, I did want to bring this forward because I wanted to especially answer the pieces around if we had any questions or suggestions for what might be cool for this type of workshop. And I do think that it would be nice for the executives who are joining us soon and for council to actually participate in this and to support this initiative. But yeah, if anybody, yeah, that's kind of it from me. The chat is open for anyone who has comments, questions, suggestions, etc. You're ready to be retrieved for that? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Hanaki. Yeah. Oh, Balqisi, please go ahead.
Yeah, I know Gabby had reached out to me personally at some point about this as well, but I think it was in the capacity of SOCA, so I do believe, well, okay, from the SFSS perspective, I think it's something worth supporting considering it's in line with the advocacy we've been doing all year, and there's even an announcement related to that today, and yeah, it seems like a cool initiative, informative one that we haven't really had this conversation in this like setting type of workshop thing before, so it would be really beneficial to membership.
It is also a free workshop to all community members, which is so awesome as it kind of alleviates one of the major barriers to attending events like this. And another piece is that with the request for financial support, there was a specific request for support with like ASL, translators, and honoraria for speakers and facilitators. So I think that that is quite important. I was thinking, and I don't know what you folks think, of passing a motion to support this in principle and to say that we kind of want to work with SF-PIRG on this piece and to at least commit now to like a co-sponsoring so that we can start that planning now and reach out to them and support them now. What do we think? Okie dokie. So let me draft up a quick motion and then an amendment to the Okay, so with this motion, I'm just going to give some of the context from the email and be it resolved that we essentially agree to co-sponsor the event and to task. I think it would make sense for the incoming president and VP Equity and Sustainability to work alongside SFPIRG in the execution of this event. Marie won't really have a choice because we're going to pass the motion. No, we're going to vote on the motion. All right. So I have copy pasted this motion in the chat and it reads, whereas SFPIRG is hosting a transformative justice summer school during June and July 2021. Whereas this program consists of 6 interactive workshops that are free to all students and community members that will help people develop their knowledge and skills around organizing for transformative justice, mutual aid, and defunding the police. Be it resolved that the SFSS commit to co-sponsoring the event alongside SFPIRG. Be it further resolved to task the incoming President Gabe Leosis and VP Equity and Sustainability Marie Haddad to liaise with SFPIRG in the execution of this event. And I would like to move to amend the agenda to include this motion. Would someone like to second?
Gabe.
Gabe seconds. All right, so this is just to add this onto the agenda. We're not voting on this motion just yet, but it does need a 2/3 majority vote to pass. So are there any questions or comments? If not, we will put the amendment to the agenda to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment to, Bill, please.
I was actually going to make an amendment to the amendment to add another discussion item.
It's not an amendment to the amendment. We can amend to add this to the agenda. Oh, wait, what? Another discussion item?
Sorry, another agenda item.
Whoa, brain freeze. Okay. So you want to add an additional agenda item? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we moved and seconded a motion to amend the agenda to add this. Let's just finish this vote and then we can get to yours to make it easier. All right, so all those in favor of the amendment to the agenda? Seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. As seeing none, the amendment to the agenda is carried unanimously. Bill, please go ahead now.
Okay, I'd like to add an announcement titled Acknowledgements.
Acknowledgements. Okay, Bill, please moves. Would someone like to second?
I'll second.
Sorry, who was that?
Rachel seconds.
10 seconds, awesome. All right, again, this is an amendment to the agenda. It needs 2/3 majority vote to pass. All those in favor of the additional amendment to the agenda, seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. All right, seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. All right, so we will go now into the consideration of the first amended motion, which reads, whereas or I'll just read over the be it resolved clause again. So be it resolved that the let me just read the full motion as we're actually considering it now. Whereas SFPERG is hosting a transformative justice summer school during June and July 2021. Whereas this program consists of 6 interactive workshops that are free to all students and community members that will help people develop their knowledge and skills around organizing for transformative justice, mutual aid, and defunding the police. Be it resolved that the SFSS commit to co-sponsoring the event alongside SFPERG. Be it further resolved to task the incoming president, Gabe Leosis, and VP Equity and Sustainability, Marie Haddad, to liaise with SFPERG in the execution of this event. So I would like to move this motion. Would someone like to second?
Sude.
Sude seconds. All right. So with regard to this piece, I think it would be nice to at least let SFPERG know that we are interested and I would like to commit to working on this, because I know that June, July sound very far away right now, but they are actually going to be here before we know it. So to be able to give direction to some incoming board members to actually get started on this piece, I think is going to be a good way to move forward. And we did recently pass a number of issues policies that do talk about policing in the military, which I think is very relevant to the piece around defunding the police and transformative justice. So I think that this is awesome. I'm definitely going to be attending, so I would love to see a little sponsored by the SFSS, co-sponsored by the SFSS logo beside it. Any comments or questions? All right, if not, then we'll put this one to a vote. So be it resolved that the SFSS commit to co-sponsoring the event alongside SFPERG. Be it further resolved to task the incoming president, Gabe Leosis, and VP Equity and Sustainability, Marie Haddad, to liaise with SFPERG in the execution of this event. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent. Please take a moment now to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. All right, so we are coming up to our last discussion item, TMX survey report. I think this one was from Wei Chen. Okay, Wei Chen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lassa. I'll screen share the report. It's also sent out in the email. So this report was coming out of the survey that we conducted in April, early April, was to get the perspective of the TMX and the Time Farm of the SFU community, and as well as the university community as well. So the survey ran from April 12th to April 29th. We got quite a lot of responses, 571 responses, and I'll just go through the result briefly. Majority of the people who took the survey are students, and about 64% of respondents said they know about the tank farm and its risk, and 72% says they're either somewhat concerned or very concerned, and 65% of the respondents said that they're against TMX. Sorry, I skipped. Yeah, 65% say they're against TMX, and majority, these are kind of the main 3 reasons. One is a violation of indigenous rights and sovereignty. The next one is a risk to the environment with climate change and as well oil spills. Endangering the community because of the fire safety and hazard of the tank farm as well, being so closely located to a lot of schools, houses, as well as our own SFU campus. So, and 83% of respondents says that they're not aware of any steps that SFU is taking to ensure safety from the tank farm in case the fire does erupt. And 42% says, well, any steps that SFU has taken is either inadequate, somewhat inadequate, or very inadequate. And a very high majority of students, about 84%, says the SFU should be educating the student body about the tank farm. And the last piece is just about sending an email to a representative. Well, kind of half and half. What students would be willing to do and the other half not. But yeah, this is just kind of basic summary of the report. I think it will be really useful to make this in the graphics and really put it out there, and as well as use it as kind of our lobbying, and we have some data on what students and the community think about the tank farm, lobbying with politicians and as well as SFU to kind of do more in educating the student body, and as well as making sure that there are adequate safety measures in case anything does happen. Because right now there is no actual evacuation or shelter plan if there is a tank farm fire. And the Burnaby Fire Department also said that it's could be impossible to extinguish a fire or even get help up to evacuate people who will control the fire. So that's pretty much the report. And yeah, let's just take any questions or discussions.
Thank you, Wei-Chun. The floor is open to anyone who may have comments or questions.
Can I go?
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for actually, reaching out to students and such to actually see what they know about TMX and all that. It's really, really refreshing to actually see that students are taking a stance against TMX. And I say that because recently Joy Johnson did release a statement, almost like a Band-Aid solution, kind of encouraging or basically saying that they wanted to build a fire hall in response to TMX versus actually taking a stance against it and acknowledging Indigenous sovereignty. So I'm happy that the students are, know about this and know how important it is to take a stance against it, and from there can actually take the meaningful action to oppose this, because we should all be taking a firm stance against TMX being built. So thanks.
Thank you, Marie. Sorry, I just did not see that you had mentioned in the chat. All right, thank you, Wei-Chun, again for sharing that. And you're on the list, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that as well. Yeah, Joy Johnson did recently on April 12th, I think, released a statement on the tank farm and TMX overall. Yeah, and the statement was kind of weak because it really did not mention at all. Again, like Marie said, that it's the violation of Indigenous rights and sovereignty. Like that's something me and a few faculty allies, and like professors as well, who's kind of been pushing Joy Johnson to say, hey, you need to make a stronger statement on TMX. It's, things are really heating up on the ground where land defenders are getting arrested. People are literally going on the front lines and protesting and going out, planting up on trees so that they don't get cut down for the construction of TMX. And SFUs, located so close to one and really are in danger of the tank farm fire, that they need to make a stronger statement, especially when they pride themselves on being climate action leaders. They really need to have a stronger stance and really push back more on TMX, because as an institution as well, talking about reconciliation and everything, you need to see action from them. So yeah, the statement was pretty weak and disappointing, because me and a few faculty allies have been pushing Joy Johnson to make a stronger statement, and it's really disappointing to see that it's kind of the same statement that's been made in the past by Andrew Petter and such. So yeah.
Thank you, Wei-Chun. Sude, please go ahead.
Awesome. I just had a real quick point of order. We've gone over 5 o'clock, which is our regularly scheduled adjournment time. So I'd like to move to extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
All right. Would somebody like to second?
Sude.
30 seconds. All right, so we'll be putting this to a vote. And I will be seeking unanimous consent to extend the meeting by 30 minutes to 5:34 p.m. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, the motion to extend the meeting has carried unanimously. Thank you, Gabe, for raising that. And I apologize today for the interruption. You may continue.
That's okay, thank you. I also wanted to voice my support and add that when I was helping out with other volunteers with the Students Against TMX campaign, with the campaign video, we're trying to gather some sources, fact sheets, and there weren't a lot of sources there, concrete data that we could use, and that was a challenge for us as well. And as Wei-Chun mentioned, it's a good lobbying source that we have data to present. And I think it's really important to share this with first-year engagement committee, with international student advocacy group, to raise awareness, because these students are going to be new to the environment, to SFU, to Canada, or even domestic students who are not really aware of what's happening on top of the mountain. We are directly affected, and not only us, also Indigenous communities. So this is really important, and yeah, I just wanted to thank.
Thank you, Sude. Much appreciated. So it looks like we have exhausted the list on this piece. So I think we may be good to move on. And I believe that is it for our discussion items. Matt.
Yes, quickly, I would like to move to amend the agenda to include a presentation at the end of the meeting prior to adjournment.
For sure. And what did you want to title that presentation?
I wanted to title that, Honor Song by VP Student Services.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Would someone like to second that amendment to the agenda?
Gabe.
Gabe seconds. All right. And once again, any amendment to the agenda after the adoption of the agenda needs to happen with 2/3 majority vote. And I'll open up the floor to any comments or questions. If not, we will put this to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, yes, the motion to amend the agenda is carried unanimously. All right, awesome. So that takes us now to the in-camera section. So the motion reads, be it resolved to go in camera for the remainder of this meeting. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe.
Gabe moves. Would somebody like to second?
Matt.
Matt seconds. All right, Gabe, you can go ahead.
Sorry, I was having trouble finding the mute button there. Yeah, I'd like to move to amend this motion to include a be it further resolved clause that reads, be it further resolved that the board of directors invite incoming executives, Marie Haddad, Serena Baines, Almas Pinkura, and Jess De La Cruz to the in-camera session.
Thank you, Gabe. Would somebody like to second that amendment?
Matt.
Matt seconds. Gabe, did you want to say anything with regard to this amendment?
Yeah, I just figured that it would be prudent that seeing as this is the last day of this board term and the next council term is starting tomorrow, that the incoming executives be present for the discussion that we will be having in camera, just for that continuity.
Perfect. Thank you, Gabe. Are there any comments or questions from the other board members? And again, the members of the in-camera session are by invitation by the board of directors. So should this motion pass, there will be no issue there. All right. If not, then we will put it to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent of the amendment to the motion. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you'd like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, that amendment is carried unanimously. And now we will go into the main motion. So be it resolved to go in. Sorry, Gabe, could you copy paste that piece into the chat?
Sure, I'll type that up right now.
I just want to make sure we have that for the minutes as well. All right, so the motion reads, be it resolved to go in camera for the remainder of this meeting, be it further resolved that the Board of Directors invite Marie Haddad, Almas Pangura, Jess Dela Cruz, and Serena Baines to the in-camera session. We will put this motion to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. All right, so I will be pausing the recording here. All right, so the recording has been resumed. So we do now have a motion for X camera. Let me just pull up my copy of the agenda again. All right, so be it resolved to go X camera. Would someone like to move this motion?
Gabe can move.
Gabe moves. Would someone like to second this motion?
Suda seconds.
Suda seconds. Any discussion? If not, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic if you would like to dissent or abstain. And seeing none, that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And now we will move into the guest 30-minute Q&A. So I believe with regards to guests, we have Carissa joining us, I think only. So Carissa, did you have any questions?
Hi, I'm actually good. Thank you, though.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. So in that case, we'll move on to the notice of motion. This one is with regard to the Space Expansion Fund, and the motion reads, whereas the 2020 referendum history report shows a different wording for the Space Expansion Fund compared to what is listed in our Financial Policy 12, whereas there were changes to the Space Expansion Fund's purpose in 2001 and 2010, whereas we have sought legal advice on the wording of the referendums to develop updated policy, be it resolved the Council amend FP 12 Space Expansion Fund as presented, and there is an attachment for consideration at a future meeting. So we've got some announcements, the first of which being that being regarding the SFSS submission to the BC Police Act Review 2021. Bilquis, did you want to take this announcement on? Okay, sure. So we will get back to that one. Board and committee exit report reminder. I believe, Corbett, that was from you.
Yeah. So just a reminder that your board and committee work report, the semi-monthly one, is due tomorrow at before midnight. And the next announcement, we'll just do back to back. The exit reports for your term is due tonight before midnight, unless you've asked for an extension for academic or medical or the standard reasons. And I've sent an email out with the templates and where you can share it to, or where you can deposit, can save your reports to. If you have any issues, please let me know as soon as possible. The exit reports have much more stricter stipend penalties and reductions, so please do your best to get it done by tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corbett. So the next part, oh, it's a duplicate. Oh, wait, never mind. So now we'll move into the one regarding the SFSS submission to the BC Police Act Review. Bilquis, are you good?
Yeah, okay. I just had to switch locations. Yeah, so I am going to briefly screen share. So I'd appreciate if I could have that ability to do so.
You should be able to.
Okay. All right, let me know when you can see my screen.
Can see it.
Good. Perfect. Okay. So I just wanted to let everyone know this is a conversation that we had at the external committee recently, where, you know, in line with a lot of the safety and defunding / abolition advocacy that we've been doing, I think yeah, we agreed that we wanted to make a submission to the current BC Police Act review that's happening, that the Legislative Assembly of BC is actually doing right now. So I just wanted to let the committee know I have made this submission yesterday, and it is very much in line with like things we've been talking about this year. Specifically named the, here's actually the full briefing note, acknowledge the work that Defund 604 as well as other Black and Indigenous folks have been doing regarding policing in colonial Canada. This is the full thing. If you ever wanted to find it, it is linked in as like a news post on the SFSS website. Thankfully, we were able to use a helpful guide that was put together by the BC Civil Liberties Association, which I also recognize that behind that is, of course, other Black and Indigenous people, but like informing some of these takes and work. So in summary, I just wanted to show you, wrong one. I just wanted to show you that this had been submitted, and I believe there is six recommendations to really center safety and investment in community engagement rather than, community safety initiatives rather than just, colonial policing and as we know it.
Perfect. Thank you, Bilquis. All right, so we do have another announcement, and this one is acknowledgements by Bilquis as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I understand that there has been, in addition to those recognized earlier, in the wonderful board year-end review that Rissa presented, those named were like the host nations, whose unceded land we're on, the students, our staff, the grassroots organizers, the supportive SFU departments and partners, council. I think one group that we often take for granted that I really wanted to make sure that we recognize are students that came, before us, like decades before us. The SFSS was formed in the 60s, has been doing this type of work since then. Special thank you to, all members, but special thank you to the students really actively engaging, whether mobilizing, the community building, whether we agree on our politics or not, we're those who really engage, debate, support, and of course teach and learn from one another is important. I think, communities, including student unions like SFSS, cannot survive without the knowledge and skills that we learn from our community mentors. And within the SFU sphere, I'm also wanting to extend a personal thanks to the former SOCA president and former SFSS president named Giovanni Hosang. Was a community member, really hands-on with a lot of the ongoing initiatives, many of which we were talking about today. Even before the Rotunda space issue, played a vital role in community building for the space thing built, played a vital role in raising awareness and mobilizing SFU students for the space campaign and tuition freeze now, general advocate for more inclusive, democratic, and justice-oriented community. And whether you agree with the politics of it or not, one thing we cannot say is that we did not see the engagement. It was there, and it really started a huge shift in our student society. That was, built from the grassroots, but I also know that this person was super core to actually mobilizing people I just wanted to narrow it down to that. And really just remember our mentors. Let's stay connected, because that's how the SFSS will survive and be its best.
Thank you, Bilqis. And one thing I would like to add to that is I did want to also acknowledge the SFSS Progressive Caucus from last year, which included our VP University Relations China, our FCAT rep Fiona, and Jennifer, our current VP Student Life, and me. And we had a very different experience in the last board term, and that has really, I think, helped to plant some of the seeds of, you know, the charters of belief that we do share and some of the pieces that have moved forward this year. So shout out to them as well. And shout out and thank you to all the students and to our staff and to council and to the board. This kind of marks the end of our year. Finally, it felt like the longest year and the shortest year ever simultaneously, but we did some, I think, pretty good work this year. So I'm proud of us. And, you know, I hope that's something that upcoming board recognizes, is that you can always do better. And I hope that you guys do. And I hope that you guys stay, you know, doing your best, thinking about staying accountable and all that stuff. So shout out to the entire board. And I hope you all felt that this year was one of much value to you. I apologize if I sound tired. It's been a year. All right. So we'll move into the last piece, which is a presentation, an honor song by our very own VP Student Services. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so I thought, you know, if we were in person, like I definitely would have invited like the FNSA singers, and I wish that could have happened. But from my teachings and from what I know and from what I've been gifted, it's always good to share. You know, and I just want to really commend everyone for all the work that has been put in this year. And this is the best way that I know how. It means a lot to me to be able to work with such amazing people and to see everything that has happened this year. And, you know, from where I come from, it's really important to, you know, acknowledge that hard work and to honor and uphold, you know, everything that we've done under the circumstances that I think, you know, we didn't ask for this to happen, and we've all done our best working remotely. From how much stuff that we've done this year, it's crazy, you know, to be put in this position. And I just want you all to take a moment and recognize that all of this has happened while you were working, while you're doing classes, while you're dealing with other things as well. So I just want to be able to share that, you know, in a good way, and to just let you all know that that I respect that. I really respect all of you and everything that you've done this year and for students, and you do it so selflessly and wholeheartedly, and you do your best, and you're continuing to learn. And I hope that, you know, whatever you do after this, I wish you the best, and I hope that we stay in touch. So I kind of set up, so hopefully, and if you have headphones on, it might be loud, so just, and RIP to my neighbors. So That's for you guys.
Thank you, Matt. That was awesome. All right, y'all. So I guess this brings us to adjournment. So be resolved to adjourn this meeting at 5:49 p.m. Would someone like to move this motion?
Matt.
Matt moves. Would someone like the second?
Corbett seconds.
Corbett seconds. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please take a moment to unmute your mic. If you'd like to dissent or abstain, Corbett.
I'm dissenting.
All right, that's one opposed. All right, seeing none else, that motion carries. I believe 14-1, and the dissent comes from Corbett. That is going to be minuted. So, all right, so it's a wrap. Thank you everyone so much, and Brianna, thank you so much for the kind message. I'm gonna miss you. We're all gonna miss you. I hope that you are destined for bigger and greater things. And thanks everyone for the awesome meeting and the awesome year. I wonder what I'm gonna, well, let me pause this recording or stop it actually rather. Bye.